Hello, 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 and welcome. Welcome to TFT. Today we are going to be talking about UFOs. Of course, I am your host, Chester C. Busby III, and we've talked about a few things here on TFT, and we're really happy to have you here. We like to tinfoil talk. It's a lot of fun. It's an interesting thing to do, and it gets us into some really interesting conversations. And I know we talked about Area 51, and now here we are talking about UFOs, but in many ways they're kind of a separate issue because what is a UFO, Thundero? Tell them.
A UFO is classified as any object that is flying around in the air and we do not understand it. It literally means, we can't identify it rather. Literally means unidentified flying object. That's all it
Right.
is. Doesn't even have to be alien in origin. It could just be something we don't know what it is.
That's right. So UFOs actually encompass a much larger area, and as you see today, I'm going to go there. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
But which I have a feeling that by the end of today's show, it will inform next week's show. I kind of think so.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because I'm going there. Yes, I am.
We're getting future woke already, boys and
Ye-
girls. Here it
ye-
comes.
Yes, you are. Yeah, yeah. But nevertheless, we love doing the TFT guys. We're always happy to have you over here with us, joining us. We see Mox Rocks is in here, Evan Von Skyver as well. We have Nick W in the house. Nice, and we got Hugh Jazz. I hope you have a nice ass, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Yeah.
hopefully,
I agree.
hopefully
Yeah.
that ladies like it. But we don't need to get into that conversation because you know me and my stripper stories, and so we don't want to do that.
Uh-oh.
Uh oh.
Watch out.
But
Don't rile the bear. Don't rile the bear.
no, don't do that. Yeah. But nevertheless, keep in mind all the links we have down below. Of course, we appreciate you guys checking that stuff out. But we'd really appreciate if you guys hit that share button and let everyone know that we're on, because it's quite obvious that today YouTube decided we're not worthy of notification. It is interesting how that algorithm works, but I think it's really about how important you are, and we're not important. Oh well.
Oh,
Yeah.
poor us.
Poor us.
But actually,
Yeah.
mine went out right away. Actually, I already have it, so that's good.
Well, that
I
is
think
good.
it's very finicky. Sometimes I'll get it 45 minutes into the show. Other times it'll come out immediately. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, no, the algorithm's quite a mess. I think they have a hard time keeping up with it. And you did see they got a little bit of a hand up possibly coming out because old Zuckerberg over there with Facebook, he was basically begging them to regulate me.
Oh, of course he wants regulated. That keep out competition.
Yeah,
Gives him a nice big government wall to protect himself behind.
but here's the thing though. I hate the concept of it in its the nature of the topic, but we probably do need some kind of internet bill of rights or something, dude. It's kind
Yes.
of got to that. Yeah.
Yes, they control too much information, and information is power. I don't understand how you can be leery, especially as somebody who's supposedly like libertarians, leery of state power, but fine with corporate power. Both are
Yeah.
powerful, both are dangerous, they need to be controlled.
Right. Right. No, it's very true, and unfortunately, these guys are way out of control. I mean, this is not
Yes.
today's TFT conversation, but it is worthy one because the simple fact of the matter is these guys deplatform anybody they deem
Mhm.
worthy of being deplatformed. Right? I mean, we could go on and on and on about Alex Jones and all kind of other people that have been, you know, unrightly. Ripped off of these things, but let's talk about the most amazing and shocking one, shall we? Before we get into today's conversation, let's talk about Tommy Robinson. Boom, copyright strike.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Yeah,
that
they
was that was a copyright strike right there. Let me say it again. Tommy Robinson, Tommy Robinson,
I,
Tommy Robinson. Right? Because there's
I
a
have
brother that has been absolutely abused by the system.
yeah, absolutely. I've followed him for a very long time, even before pretty much anybody else knew him, especially anybody outside of Britain. And he's never really said anything,
No.
in my opinion, controversial or racially motivated. He said things that are pretty obviously true, and people in power don't like it when people say things that are obviously true that go against their narrative. So he's got to go.
Well, I think the mistake he made, he was a leader of the league, and
Hmm.
but they started getting crazy, which is why he left them, right?
Yep.
So that I think he was on a list from the beginning. I think that's what happened. But really, the big thing that happened was he basically was talking about these Pakistani grooming gangs that are out there raping little girls, and no one was doing
Hmm.
shit about it. And what happened, of course, we saw that break. Actually, we've seen three cities break. Everyone talks about that one place where we're looking at 10,000 children raped, and the cops doing nothing, right? But actually, there's three cities now, right? And he was at the initial release of that information, and they were extremely embarrassed by their inaction that caused all that trouble, because a lot of the cops' comments and stuff. Well, they're just a bunch of whores. She's 12,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
bastard, right? And Tommy was involved in that, and he got on a list hard, and
Hmm.
basically, he's been on that list ever since, even though we're well past that problem. It sounds like we got a little bit of echo going on. I'm getting some complaints from the chat. That's coming across on your side, I'm sure.
It's probably because I had my level turned way up. They also said they one of them said they can't hear you, but I'm really loud.
They can't hear me. They most certainly can hear me. Chester is certainly all the way up. There's no way you're not hearing me.
Yeah.
You can feel me across oceans, man.
Let's see if
Uh,
that's better
Let
for
me
the
see.
echo.
Is that better? It is better. Did you shut the other mic off? That's you did it. No, there it is again.
No, I don't know why it's echoing. It shouldn't be.
That's weird.
It
Uh,
should not be. Hang on. Let me. I'll be right back. Let me see if that fixes
all
it.
right. But anyway, that's off topic for sure. Oh, look, there's no more echo. Ha! Ha! So it was his fault. That's always good when it's not my fault. But nevertheless, that is a off-topic thing. But I suppose we could talk about political conspiracy theories, but I don't know if there's much fun. But nevertheless, today we are going to be getting into the UFO thing, and I'm gonna I'm gonna start out with my little spiel first this time, and then I'm gonna let Thundero do his thing because now we're getting tons of static from Thundero. Okay, so I'm going to do my spiel, Thundero. So everybody, strap in, and we'll have a conversation when I get through it. So we're talking about UFOs, and of course, UFOs are awesome. Now, this is not a real UFO. This is a picture of a UFO, but it's a badass one, so I like it. But there have been many sightings. Here's a picture here of a blown up one. This is actually a photograph from someone in a window. Here's another one from the ground, not very clear. There are thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of images of the actual flying vehicle thing. And we talk about that under Area 51, of course. And, people have their different opinion on what they are. But I think kind of the general accepted consensus in the public is it's some kind of military vehicle, right? Now, one of the most popular things we actually see, or most common thing we see, are actually little silver spheres. There's so many videos, so many pictures of these little spheres. They're not big enough to hold a person, so they're like drones. And I have a feeling they are some kind of drone that just came out before this whole, public drone thing we have. But who knows what they are? But of course, that goes all the way back to the Foo Fighters, World War II, Korean War. Actually, every war we've had, there's been UFOs hanging around and reports from pilots. We still get pilots report today, just airlines and stuff like that all the time. I just showed you one there off the wing of a plane. And of course, another thing with the UFO type of conversation always comes into the damn poor cows. I mean, what's up with the cows, man? Leave the cows alone. They didn't do nothing, you know. But actually, today, my offer, I want to talk about things that are not metallic vehicles. Now, I'm assuming that Thundero does, so I'm going to come back to my point later, and I'm going to let Thundero do his thing first. But there's my initial offer, Thundero. What do you think? Am I alone again? I think I'm alone again. Are they trying to hide the evidence? Let me go back on the other side. Thundero's not got anything, any volume at all. Do I get a tag today? Did they put a tag on me today like they did with Antarctica? How you doing, Thunder? Are you gonna be able to speak? No. All right. There he goes.
Can you hear me? You
I
can hear me
can.
now.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
All right. Am I good? My level okay, or am I too quiet?
Oh, your level's fine. I just turned it down a little bit actually, but all I'm hearing a
Gotcha.
little bit of static, but I'm hearing no echo, so I'm good to go. I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
I don't know why it's staticking, but anyway, yes, I actually do want to talk about the more vehicular style of UFOs that have been
Awesome.
really reported for a very long time, but majorly since we've been able to actually report things on a national and international level,
Hmm.
since probably around the 30s and 40s is when it's really started to kick off, and then kicked off big time throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, which they still happen all the time. You just don't hear as much about them from the media. In fact, just a few years ago, there was a huge sighting of what appeared to be a fleet of ships, I would assume, in the sky above Philadelphia. There was multiple videos of it, and it was basically what looked like what you would assume a fleet of ships would look like, flying in a formation, a loose formation, but together, over the overhead of Philadelphia. All you could really see was the lights. Some of the lights were bigger, some of them were smaller, but they just kept on flying. No explanation was ever even attempted to be given. There's
Really?
obviously all sorts of sightings that happen all year long, all over the country, all over the world, especially in Russia. Russia seems to be a hot spot
Mexico
for
too.
some reason,
Yeah.
and Mexico,
Perfect timing,
and
comic book
it's
Bob. He
very
says,
interesting.
"Hola." Yes.
It's very interesting how much it's not talked about anymore in the media, because I remember in the 90s and early 2000s especially, if it happened, it was everywhere. Like, they would talk about it, you'd see it on the news, you might even sometimes see it on national news. And now they just kind of ignore that it's happening. And it's still happening. People think that it was a lot of people think it's not happening anymore. People aren't seeing UFOs anymore. No, it still happens all the time. Um, all different shapes, sizes. Some look just like lights. There's even the famous one. I'm sure Chester's probably seen it. Other people may have seen it, of a strange light going down over the Dome of the Rock. Hang on one second.
Oh yeah, that I remember that one. And the
And
chat's
then it just
saying that,
shooting straight up into space at
yeah.
a speed that is way too fast for any vehicle we have.
Now they're saying they're not seeing an image, but I can see an image no problem on the YouTube side. So maybe Joshua's just being trolling. I am paying attention, dude, and I do not see any problem. You guys should have a perfect image over there. I'm seeing it being sent out, so I don't know. Hmm. But anyway, just keep going. We'll see if there's any more complaints from the other side there.
Yeah, as far as I can see it on YouTube as well, and in the old Hangouts. So I'm not really sure if it's working or not. And of course, they're quiet.
No, they said the
Oh,
image
it
is
looks
back.
like Nick.
That's weird.
Nick says the image is back, which is good.
Okay.
Yeah, these things have been spotted all over the world repeatedly in some cases. In some cases, with very weird. What would be a very weird coincidence. The fact that they're basically the exact same thing seen on the other side of the world. So it's a very peculiar. A lot of people think it's aliens. Some religious people think it's how angels and demons travel.
Hmm.
Some people think it's just government programs they don't want to talk about, very similar to the stealth bomber, which they didn't want to talk about for years. Um, it could be anything, really. It's really hard
True.
to know for sure. But there have been so many different sightings. The one you're looking up right now, the Dome of the Rock one, was very crazy. Actually, I just
It
watched it
was.
the other day,
Yeah.
and there's no explanation for this
No.
other than a very very detailed hoax, which it doesn't appear to be. So it's I accidentally knocked my headset off. It's very interesting.
Mm. Well, and the video, go trying to, now I understand that things are sometimes hard to find now because things disappear in Google. So if you really want to find stuff, don't go use the Google, use somebody else. But that Dome of the Rock video is impressive because it's not a quick thing, right? They're usually quick
No.
thing, and these images
Hmm.
are horrible. The video is much better.
Yes.
And basically, this light came down, hovering over the Dome of the Rock area, Jerusalem. It stood there for quite a while and then just took off. It was there for a long time, actually. It's quite the impressive video. Absolutely, good one. Hmm.
It's actually one that they actually was so
Yeah,
I guess you would
that's right.
call it undeniable or so spectacular that news agencies, including CBS and stuff, did report on it
Hmm.
because it was just too crazy. Like, there's no aside from some elaborate hoax, there's no way that that's anything we know of technologically. I actually found a video of it. I'm gonna post it in the chat if anybody wants to see it.
Yeah, you should check it
It's
out.
impressive.
It's impressive. And
And there's
Moxrock is saying
also,
three different angles too. Awesome.
yeah, there's also another video of from the one that's in the chat. It's actually a CBS news reporting on it real quick. It's only like 36 seconds or something like that, 26 seconds, real fast. But there's actually more to that video where the guy from that angle points it up and you can see red lights in the sky that look like they're in the shape of like a ship. And what he believes it was that it was some sort of probe they sent down and then sucked it back up into the ship and flew away,
It's kind of
which is
what it looks
possible.
like. Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot over what we consider holy sites. You know, pretty much the three big major religions all consider that area to be holy, and it's very interesting how often there is sightings of very undeniable things in that region,
Hmm.
and really all over the world, but especially in holy sites and in either really remote places or oftentimes they're right over big cities, and you'll have a whole bunch of people seeing them, and it just gets brushed under the rug as mass hysteria or whatever.
Yeah. Well, from an archaeological point of view, actually, because that's where the Israeli temple was located. Actually, underneath there, there's this little sacred cave that was under the Holy of the Holies. Of course, before the Romans tore that down, and of course, the Muslims have had control of it for quite a while now. They consider it one of their holy sites for some reason, mainly because
Yep.
they don't want the Jews to have it, I think. But they
Well,
built that little.
I can tell you why. The Muslims
I
claim
know
that that
why.
is where Muhammad was taken to heaven, um, which is convenient. It was also happens to be the place where the Jews have their most holy site, and obviously Christians would value it as well. Um, all very convenient, but that's another topic for another time. But it's very interesting that right over that specific spot, I've actually been there. Um, that light, you can in the video, if anybody goes and watches it, you can see it. The light just comes down, sits there for a little bit, and then fires off into what looks like space
Yeah,
at a speed faster than any earthly vehicle we have,
it is really
as
cool.
at least publicly.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah. And but then again, Mohammed is almost kind of his own TFT conversation. He's a bit of a conspiracy theory as well. And yeah, I said it.
A little bit.
Copyright
Uh
strike. Tommy Robinson. All right. But this one right here is actually this clip I got up right now. This is out of a video, and
oh.
it's a really cool video. You can go check out. You can find it online. This one is very clear, actually, very clear one. There's this truck driving along, and he just kind of stuck his camera out and just taped the things that was just kind of hovering alongside him, going down the road. But I remember this one. It was a really weird one. Yeah.
That is pretty crazy.
Mm.
There's also, besides even the ones that look like alien craft or something, out of from outer space, there's plenty of videos out there, which of course my brain doesn't want to think of one, similar to what you're talking about, where people were just driving along and all of a sudden there's something in the sky next to them they can't quite explain.
Yep.
There's even declassified military ones from fighters, from the cameras on the fighter jets, and just other planes that have shown what appears to be a ship flying next to the plane or within vicinity of the plane that it can be seen
Mhm.
by the naked eye. So either somebody, if the military is the one behind all of these, or somebody's military, they were obviously having a laugh at the other branch of the military that doesn't know about it, because when these guys see it, they freak out. They literally, go crazy on the radio, freaking out, asking what they're supposed to do, what should they do, should they engage it. There's even videos of fighter jets engaging UFOs and what appears to be one actually shooting it down. Um, it's very interesting how openly obvious something is flying around in the sky it is,
Yeah.
and how it's just not talked about by the government anymore. They just don't talk about it. They used to. They used to talk about it all the time, and now they're just quiet. Mum's the word.
Yeah. Well, this right here image I have up here, this little image, it's not very clear, so I'm not going to bother blowing it up. But this is an image of supposedly of the TR-3B, or I think what we call Aurora.
Hmm.
And of course, we know this is one of those super secret thingies, and it's a plane that basically goes in and out of space, right?
Right.
But yeah, we need a shuttle.
Right.
But nevertheless, but let me tell a little story, and I'm gonna this isn't gonna be accurate to the story because I can't remember all the numbers and stuff involved, but I'm gonna relate the intention of the story. Basically, there was this flight tower controller that was he's telling this story, and he had a really interesting day, and they actually had showing the tracking of the plane and a whole bunch of stuff. I forget which website I saw this on, but basically, one of the things that a lot of pilots, especially like Air Force guys and the private guys who own the faster planes and stuff, they'll call the tower and ask for a land speed check because this is a complete open mic, right? Everybody can hear each other, right? This is an
Right.
interesting thing about being a pilot that I didn't know. But and they call it out and they get you know uh, uh, 0.83 Mach 2 or something like that because they're trying to show off. Pilots are that kind of people. But he had one day where all these pilots were there was a whole bunch of them, I guess, Army guys and Navy guys, and they were getting their speed pulled off from the flight controller, and Mach 2s and things like that, which is pretty impressive. And then very calmly, a voice came on and says, "Yeah, tower, something, something, something. We would like a land speed check, please. Mach 23." Or something like that.
Right.
Right.
How ridiculous.
Right. I don't remember the number exactly, but it was just ridiculous, and it was just a shut up, shut him up moment, right? And he probably shouldn't have done that. That pilot was probably in one of these planes right here, and he should he shouldn't have been doing that, but he just couldn't resist, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah, Project Blue Book. Good
Yeah.
point there, Nick. But I thought that was a
The
real cute story.
the Aurora, from what I remember, I haven't looked into it in a few years, but last time I did, they said it would go Mach 10 was the speed. Its speed basically Mach 10, which is insanely fast.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, right around the time the conspiracies about the Aurora were actually being talked about more openly, I vividly remember, I think it was a Scientific American article talking about Boeing working on a Mach 10 commercial airliner
Hmm.
that could fly from New York to Tokyo in 2.5 hours, which is crazy fast. Because now it's like a 24-hour flight or something like that. It's really long. So basically, you could get all the way around the world in less than 3 hours. So the Aurora program is very interesting, and it's also very interesting that it's kind of been dropped, from what I understand, in not in the government. I don't even know if they're still doing it or not. They're not going to tell anybody until they have it mastered. But
Hmm.
in the circles where it used to be talked in very heavily, it's just kind of not a forgotten issue now. It's not really spoken of as much as it used to be, which is very strange.
Look at this picture of this aircraft here. This is the an earlier model of the Aurora, I guess.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, the Aurora is uh, it is a real deal. I keep getting these mock-ups of what people think that it looks like because all we know is it's a wedge, right?
Yeah,
It's following the same format we've seen, but I think this right here is probably more likely what it looks like.
yeah.
But
It looks
eventually,
flyable.
yeah. It's a plane. But I
Yeah,
think seeing as this is one that they've kind of let us know, just like if you remember the stealth fighter, stealth bomber, the Blackbird, even those things were like these mythical planes, and the military, the government just let us enjoy the mythical nature of them for a while, and then eventually they
yeah.
announced them. But then again, like we said before, those stealth fighters and stuff like that, they're coming up out of the 60s and 70s type of technology. So maybe the Aurora
Right.
is an 80s project, or maybe early 90s. Who knows where they are now, right?
Yeah, that's what I've was when I was really more heavily into this stuff. That's what they were saying. It was probably late '80s, early '90s level of technology, and now there's no telling. Hello, DeWolf. There's no telling how much they've advanced it. If you ask Alex Jones, they have basically warp drives, so maybe they
Hmm.
do, and they're just not being given,
Possibly.
making everybody privy to that knowledge.
Yeah. Well, now keep one thing in mind though, about since you mentioned Alex Jones. Now people go on and on about Alex Jones, and I get his shtick. I get the comedy of what the dude is doing. But here's another weird, interesting thing because Alex, he basically bases all his information he does on his show on the Drudge Report. And if you know anything about the Drudge Report, you know the Drudge Report is extremely accurate. It's actually some of the most accurate news you can get. So a
Yep.
lot of stuff that Alex says, it's actually very true. He
Yeah.
just takes it to
Yeah.
the nth level with his insanity. Uh,
He's just a little bit bombastic. That's all.
he is extremely bombastic, and that's his shtick. That's his thing.
Yeah.
He's running a radio show. He's doing kind of what we're doing, but a lot better.
Yeah.
He's entertaining, and they just lost their damn mind, right?
Oh yeah.
But
They
look
can't
at
have him. They can't have somebody entertaining out there. Dropping truth bombs.
yeah,
That's too dangerous.
look at this picture here. That's
So,
good, the interesting picture, huh? Hey, Denelli.
so that really is an interesting picture.
Oh,
Picture.
DeWolf. It's
Yeah.
not Denelli. It's DeWolf. I thought I heard a little girl.
Oh.
Huh. So,
No, your daughter is there, dude. I heard her voice. Don't let
so interesting.
Thundero twist it. Now go ahead, dude. I'll
Now,
shut
now,
up now.
now you're right. We really do have technology that is far and above, what we have known before, and that's
Mhm.
always the case. We always want to have the technology, not let the enemy know it, and be using it and for our benefit. And that's interesting that you go here for UFOs because yeah, this can be UFOs, but and this is a great time for me to jump in here because I want to get into. I would like to discuss some of the other aspects of UFOs, right?
Sure.
Because you guys have talked about um, the light that was above the Dome of the Rock,
Yeah.
and then we have the aspect that that these are craft that are just our technology far in advanced. Of course, aliens come up, but there's also the idea. Sometimes you see the balls of light that fly around through fields, and I think
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Ireland or England had one of these ball of light that just sort of flew around, and there was a helicopter that I think flew over and was filming one of these,
Mm-hmm.
and now I think the old term for this type of phenomenon is called a will o' the wisp.
Hmm.
It is. Yeah.
You've heard of that?
Yep, of course.
Yep.
And I did mention this earlier. It is actually the most common type of UFO seen. Yeah, but go ahead.
That's right.
Right, right. Really, the just singular ball that doesn't look like it can be like say house anyone inside of it.
No, it's just
That is the most common.
Yep, yep, that's right. And there's some
Now,
crazy, really
but
good video on that, by the way. There's actually one video of one of those, two or three of those balls in the process of making a crop circle. Hoo-hoo, we haven't even touched that yet.
yes, yes, I think that's what I was thinking of.
Well, there's also, just real
Thundaro
quick,
said
there's
something.
also a similar thing that happens out on the sea, which is St. Elmo's fire, which is basically, it's not usually ball shaped. Sometimes it is, but it's a concentration of static, I think it's static electricity or magnetism that creates these weird little plasma glowing things on ships
Mhm.
that people would see. And for years, that would have been considered a UFO before we understood what it was.
Right,
So
yeah.
this very well could be a natural phenomenon to some extent. Some of it could be that people are seeing. I know the government tries to pass it off as just ball lightning, which they had denied existed for years
Yeah,
too. Now they've pretty much admitted, yeah,
yeah.
that
There's
happens.
ball lightning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's Jacob's ladder. I think that's
Yep,
another
Yep.
phenomenon
yep.
of the same concept. But those have an idea that they can be just energy, right? Some of these other balls, when they're moving around, these lights, they're moving around with it looks like a sentient thought
Mhm.
behind it,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think Thundaro said something earlier about the idea of a probe, right? So is it a probe from an alien craft, or another one of these ideas? Of course, we always jump into is religion or spirituality,
Mhm.
right? Something from the other side, a ghostly phantasm phenomenon.
Mm. So you want to go that
It could
direction?
be.
All right.
It very well could be. Like you said, like a great example is the one over the Dome of the Rock. All we see is a ball of light, very similar to the ones in these pictures, and then it just shoots straight up, which is obviously not a natural phenomenon. The way it lowers down and shoots straight up, and only occurring one time. That's just not something that's going to happen. So something was controlling that ball of light. Now, whether there was a machine attached to the ball of light or it was just an energy ball, we don't know. As far as we know, maybe the U.S. government or some government agency has the ability to send out contained electrical balls that can probe things or scan areas for them.
Mhm.
Or it could be otherworldly. We simply do not know, and whoever does know, if anybody does, they're not talking about it.
Yeah, and this image that I brought up right here, um, there are many of these types, and this is kind of what I think DeWolf is alluding to. You guys can see this. I'm sharing on this on your side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. There are many like this, and definitely look angelic like. And there's many, many, many photos and videos like this. Sometimes they're even glowing, but it is weird. And a lot of people say, "Well, hoaxes," and yeah, there of course there are hoaxes, but when you're talking about UFOs, we're talking in the tens of thousands. It could be higher, as far as I know,
I
tens
would
of
say
thousands.
probably millions. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
it's
I
just a
wouldn't be
crazy
surprised if
number.
it's in the millions. Yeah.
Now,
And it's so much, there's so much so that Project Blue Book existed, and I'm sure there's some other form of it now that they don't talk about, but that basically
yeah.
it was just designed to study UFOs. That was what the U.S. Air Force was studying.
Hmm.
According to Wikipedia, it started in 1952 and ceased in 1970, January 1970. But you also have other things that have gone beyond just simple studying UFOs, things like SETI and other different projects that have done similar things, which are basically looking for intelligent life, things of this nature. So I would say it's very much a concern to certain aspects of the government because they're spending a lot of money trying to figure out what it is.
Oh yeah, yeah. Something you just said a little while ago, when the probe idea came up, and then we were also talking about the glowing ball phenomenon. So normally we think about something that has to be science fiction. I'm going to go way science fiction. Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
something
Just
that's
real
science
quick, happy
fiction.
birthday, Roger, by the way. Go
Happy
ahead, dude.
birthday, Roger. Things that are science fiction, we normally think about as being technology, and technology is going to mean a computer, and a computer
Hmm.
that can move around like that is going to be a drone, is what we normally see today. So now, what on the other hand, plasma doesn't weigh anything, and so you could move plasma around very quickly, very easily through various concepts, either by using magnetism or heat waves around it or something, right? So you could create a ball that moves through the air if you could encode ones and zeros into a magnetic field, right? A some sort of um, a wave, if or a high or an intensity level that would create a program. Could you then encode energy itself with information to that it could respond and be used much like what hard-coded circuitry could be today?
Yeah,
Now that's some science fiction right there.
it is, and that made me think of this. I brought this picture up here. These were taken over in somewhere in the northwest of America, and there's a whole bunch of photos taken on a couple different days, by the way. But these pictures all seem to be some of the same day. But this object was well documented, and boy,
Mhm.
is it an odd one. Because this is a
It is
drone.
a
This
very odd design.
this is
Yeah.
not. There's no people inside. This isn't that big. I mean, it's only a few feet tall, right? Maybe 6 feet tall or something like that. But it just that's what popped into my head because what a weird design. And this thing was just floating in the air, and just some hikers got some pictures.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
that's
crazy.
weird.
And it
So
doesn't
that's the
appear to
idea of,
have too much of a propulsion system on it. Go ahead, DeWolf.
well, actually those round nodes on the sides,
Hmm.
you could influence by utilizing heat or something. You could
Yeah,
you could influence air to move around it, in a
you could
way,
use ionic energy too to create an updraft with those. Actually, now that I look
Yeah,
at it, they're big enough.
little vectors and stuff through there.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
So
a
that's the
weird
idea
thing.
of energy. What's that? What do I
I don't
think?
know. I no. I said it was a weird. It's just a weird thing.
It really is. So yeah, so you guys hadn't talked about the energy balls at length yet. So I wanted to get into
No.
that, and the idea, of course, if you could encode information into energy itself, wrapped around in a ball shape, moving around, could we do that today? If we couldn't do that, could an alien presence, a high tech, society, could they do that? Well, they can do anything because we don't know about them yet. But what if I now want to go into the what ifs because you guys have been at it for a while and it's now 30 minutes past. What is the end game, if we will, to coin a term, for or the purpose? That'd be a better thing. Purpose behind UFO phenomenon. If it's military, that's obvious. If it is the spiritual concept, like I mentioned with the energy balls, if it's a ghostly form, spiritual matter, well, that's a spiritual matter. That's a higher realm of thinking, and we could ponder that all day long. And that leaves us with the aliens once again. So if
Yep.
the aliens are sending drones, and what is that purpose behind that? And if you're going to keep coming here, flying around in the sky, get seen occasionally with various different technologies that you apparently have, what is that purpose? And why not make contact?
Well, maybe they already
It
have.
would, yeah, that's very possible they have, and we're just not privy to that. But also, um, it could just be arrogance. It could just be simple. They don't really care if we see them, to be honest.
Yeah.
They're so if let's say they're another worldly, from another planet, their technology to be able to even reach here is something beyond really what we can imagine. Because as we understand the universe, it's basically impossible to travel between the planets as we understand it. So they would have to have technology beyond anything we have, or at least that we are told we have. And if they were that technologically advanced, maybe they have no interest in communicating and they're just observing. It's
That's
just a
true.
scientific experiment for them, basically.
Possibly.
That's true. Like,
Unfortunately, once again, don't use Google if you're trying to do this. But there are many, many, many images going on what you just mentioned, DeWolf, of spacecraft being seen leaving Earth. And actually, from a lot of things been pulled off, like the International Space Station and other things like that, it actually seems quite crowded. There seems to be a lot of activity, actually, things coming and going all the time. Now, is that simply us going back and forth to some kind of bases or things in space? Maybe. But there's a lot of traffic moving along, actually.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I know there's a video out there. I think it's from the International Space Station, actually, of what looks like a battle in space.
Yeah, that's right.
It's you see a whole bunch of small dots flying around. They're pretty far off, but they're flying around in what would look like dogfighting formations. And they slowly as the video goes, there's less and less of them until only there's a few of them, and then there's none because they leave.
Hmm.
Um, that video definitely exists. I bet Google will make it very hard to find, but that
Yeah.
video definitely
well,
exists. I've seen
I've heard of this from the thermal camera. I think it's the thermal camera or
it. Yep.
night vision camera of a certain generation pointed up at the sky, and
Yeah.
you can see ships flying around.
Yeah, no,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah. And, I got a few comments over here. Mox Rocks is in either a probe or a dimensional being slash craft. There's a lot of people who think that these, because of the way they just appear and just disappear. Now, are they simply moving at speeds we can't catch with the eye, or are they literally just coming in? Is it more transdimensional travel? This is a growing trend, actually, of people's opinion. So, it's an interesting one, Mox Rocks. Eric Hawkins says, I think they had some kind of Russian concepts cell fighter too. I'm sure they had many things actually. They probably still do. And the Chinese are throwing some piece of junk up in the air.
Right, for sure. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Of course, they probably fall down a lot, but don't
I
believe the
think
hype. By the
I
way.
think I think the reason you're seeing a lot more people leaning towards interdimensional is because scientists, for the last 10 years especially, have really been railing on how it's impossible to travel it through space because it's so big. So you're seeing people who still see this stuff happening, and there has to be some explanation. So if it's not an interstellar craft, as in they're sailing between the stars, where are they coming from? Where are these things coming from?
Mm,
And you also have things like the CERN project going on, and things where there's statements made by high level scientists saying something to the effect of they want to open gateways and things of this nature. So people are starting to notice this and then kind of putting them together that, well, maybe that's where they're coming from. That, yeah, they have interplanetary ships, but they don't have interstellar ships because of the vastness of space, which I don't believe is really as vast as we're told, but another topic for another day.
that definitely.
And
Yeah.
and they have ships that can break our atmosphere no problem, because we can break our atmosphere with little problem. And all they would need is some form of dimensional opening gate thing that can allow them to burst through our reality into theirs, or maybe even from our planet to their planet, wherever it is, in some sort of like Stargate type deal.
Hmm.
There's a lot of different people who are more open to that idea now, just because it seems like conventional idea of like Star Trek style warp travel is not impossible per se, but it's very improbable and wouldn't really do anything because space is
Hmm.
so huge.
Well, Comic Book Bob is responding to Eric's question about the Russian stealth bomber or stealth fighter. He says, "Yeah, the U.S. version looked like a teardrop. The Soviet Union's, oddly enough, looked a lot closer to an actual fighter. It had the same segmented look and arrowhead shape. Interesting. You see what I do have on the screen here, though. Of course, this is the Black Knight satellite, and there are
Yes.
some interesting images here. And just so you know, officially from our good friends over at NASA, they say it's just a blanket.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Huh.
I'm sure they
Yeah.
do.
Looks like a
It.
blanket. Looks like a lot like a blanket. It's a
I snuggle up with one like that every night. I don't know
yeah,
what you're
huh?
talking about.
Yeah.
Honestly, that one picture with it turned from the side, with it tilted, it looks very much like a craft.
Yep.
That one
Certainly
there,
does.
I it looks
That
like a debris from a craft for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. You know the interesting thing, this thing has been seen for quite a while, actually. I don't know if you guys know this, but Nikolai Tesla actually made contact with that thing and was very confused as to what it was and what it was doing in orbit, because he could see it with his technologies and stuff and didn't get it. Because it was obviously some kind of craft and he actually notified the American government. No comment. I
And the
believe.
the amazing thing is it's up there. We know it's up there. NASA keeps deflecting, but they know it's up there too. You're gonna tell me they haven't sent anything there to look at it? They haven't got close to it. They don't want to know what it is.
Mhm.
Why would they not? Why would you not want to get? I
Oh,
mean,
so you're saying
let's
that
say if you wanted to
that
bunk it and say, yeah, it's just a blanket. Okay, fly a ship right next to it and start taking pictures. How hard is that? Why
Oh,
is that
well,
so
I
difficult?
think it's equal difficulty in actually getting us a real picture of the Earth from a distance because we don't have one of those either. But
Right.
did you guys see the Black Knight satellite Pepsi commercial?
No, I
Go
don't
no.
think I did.
go dude, go check that out because Pepsi made a commercial and it's all focused on the Black Knight and it coming down and bringing hope and peace and love. Of course, you know it's Pepsi. But that was a weird little thing. It was an odd thing for Pepsi to make a commercial about. Why? Why would they cover such a controversial topic? But they did. If you, Go check it out, guys. The Pepsi's Black Knight satellite commercial. Go check it out. It's very interesting little thing because sometimes these big companies and stuff they touch on stuff I don't think they're supposed to be touching on, or maybe they do it intentionally. I don't know, but that's an interesting one.
Wait a second here.
Hmm.
Um, I have to agree with Eric Boyd from the chat. I've never heard about this one. The Black Knight satellite. See, when you say satellite, I'm assuming we put it up there. So
No,
you're saying
no,
that this
it's
is
ancient. Yeah, it's ancient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just floating up there. It was the only reason most people even really know about it is because they accidentally caught a glimpse of it in some picture. I think it was from the International Space Station or one of the shuttle missions,
Hmm.
and NASA tried to say it was like a blanket and just a piece of just a rock, but then people started to analyze it and get more pictures of it from the ground, and it's clearly not that. Like
Yeah,
it's
and then
clearly something other than that.
Yeah, and then of course the Tesla report was Mr. Nikolai Tesla, right? Also then brought into it because it's obviously what he was talking about, and his data confirmed that there was some kind of vehicle in orbit. And of course, this is back what 100 years ago, right? Supposedly, we
Right.
weren't doing anything really with space at that time, but yet Nikolai Tesla had made contact with that whatever that is, as far as it just in a radio electromagnetic way he had. It's not like he talked to it, but he knew
Right.
it
He
was
pinged
there.
off of it.
Yeah, yeah, and he
Yeah.
knew it was there because here's the thing. Understand that when Nikolai Tesla died, now that's another TFT conversation. We could do a whole show on Tesla, but when
Oh
he
yes.
died, the American government came in and confiscated all his stuff, right? And then
Correct.
it's kind of interesting that
yeah.
not too long after we got things like radar and other stuff, right? I
Hmm.
mean, Tesla was. I mean, people go on and on about Einstein. Einstein's kind of the celebrity scientist of that time, right?
Hmm.
Especially because of the politics involved, and the American government wanted to use him as a anti-Nazi propaganda. Here's a good German Jew, et cetera, et cetera. But
Right.
the one of the real actual geniuses of that time was Tesla, and he was a
Yes.
weird, freaky fella. But that was the true genius of the 20th century was Tesla, not Einstein.
It's interesting how much he affects every single living person's life, and they don't even know it.
Yep.
Um, Largely because of the very simple invention of the way he, I guess you would say, invented the electric motor.
Hmm.
Um, we still pretty much use his design. It's been
ACDC.
updated a little bit. We've added a little bit of stuff here or there to make it a little bit more efficient, but it's basically what he came up with. And
Oh
a
yeah.
hundred and whatever, 20 years later, we're still using it, and it's still fantastic. We're
Yep.
still getting more and more and more power out of it with new and new versions of it, new and new putting better materials and things like that. So he was on to something way back then, especially when it came to electricity and radio waves and things. It's very interesting how much, like you said, stuff came out right after he just
Oh yeah.
happened to die of old age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he had done. You talk about wireless communications and wireless energy and stuff like that. That dude was doing that stuff 100 years ago. I mean, he's
Yep,
the real deal.
he had wireless power working
Yeah, yeah, he
100 years
did.
ago.
Yeah.
Now you have it. Many cell phones you can do charge your phone wirelessly now. Well, he was doing that 100 years ago, where he could charge up lights and batteries and all sorts of
Well,
things.
who is he talking to on his cell phone?
Well,
um,
it's
Probably the only other person who had the capability that he gave the other receiver to.
Oh yeah.
They've had cell phone technology, the basic technology, for a century.
oh
They
yeah.
just didn't have any way of implementing it that was feasible
Mhm.
until recently.
Yeah, but a lot of the things, the all the electricity in your house, just like Thundera was mentioning, is coming out of Tesla's inventions. But that's a whole nother conversation. We don't want to get into that too
Yeah.
deeply. But one of the things I'm showing here is just as we're talking, is a whole bunch of UFOs around the sun. And that's kind of an interesting little thing. And I think one of the most amazing videos I ever saw was this video here. And there's been more than one actually. There's a couple of them, and it's showing these balls that seem to be seemingly siphoning something off of the sun and then leaving at a ridiculously high pace. Now, could you say this is some kind of activity of the sun that it does, and this is just some kind of ball of gas, and that the sun releases? Maybe, right? But it is very interesting, and it's one of those things that we see a lot of very interesting things, and you kind of wonder why the scientific community doesn't latch onto it and explain it, right? Um, you know,
Well,
uh,
it's also, think about this. They keep talking, you have all these scientists going on about climate change and how we're destroying the planet with fossil fuels and da 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 da. Okay, well, you have evidence of a system that can collect energy directly from the sun. Why are you not interested in that? Why do you want to cover that up? Because that's obviously what was either it's what you were saying, it's some kind of weird gas phenomenon, or that's some sort of collection mechanism. It's one of the two, because there's nothing else that could be sitting there that close to the sun without burning up that we know of.
Except
So,
Thor.
except
right,
Thor,
except
yeah,
Thor, he could
exactly,
be
that's
it
right.
could be Thor.
No,
Maybe
no
he was
problem,
making his hammer.
maybe. But
But you
the
would think they would want to be in on that. I've actually had conversations with people who are fully in, all in with the apocalyptic version of climate change, and I say to them, we don't need to make people's life worse. All we need to do is find a way to cheat the energy that's coming into the planet and the planet gives off, to recycle that somehow and turn it into energy. And that looks like what this is. This is basically a system of the energy's already there. They're just taking a piece of it because the
yeah,
sun ain't going to run out
possibly.
anytime soon.
It is
So,
interesting. I wish they would take some time with it, but there are a few things here in the chat I want to get to. Moxrock says, for approximately 13,000 years, the satellite has orbited Earth. Yeah, that black night thing is very, very interesting. And the dates that they're putting on that, now I'm not sure how they come to those dates, because remember, many times I question any kind of dating people do, because it's really a load of crap. But
Who was back 13,000 years ago watching it?
I know, right? But it is
Or
interesting
does it
that
have?
it is
Do they
interesting
count the
that
rings on it?
maybe they did, yeah. But the interesting thing with that date, of course, is we know that about 12,000 years ago there was a very interesting event that took place on this planet. Comic Book Bob says Tesla had a lot of enemies because he wanted to give power to to everybody for free. Tesla was big into giving to the people, and that didn't sit well with those in power. Well, J.P. Morgan was actually one of his benefactors for quite a while, and but JP found out he was developing, dumping a ton of money into it, and he was developing to give it away free, and JP Morgan just shut him down. So yeah, good point. Mox Rocks continues. He says, same is true of Henry Ford, Ford's first car. It was made of all hemp, ran on hemp oil. The big company said no. Yeah, well, now you got to keep in mind that at that time you had people like Rockefeller who were going around trying to sell oil to be used for various things, and of course, eventually it became the car and the and gasoline became married together in a beautiful way for those people. But here's the thing: it is the people like Rockefeller that went on and gave us the concept of fossil fuel, right? The idea of it coming from fossils. But of course, the interesting thing about oil, or petroleum, or whatever you want to call it, is that actually, if you just take the smallest moment to do a little bit of research, what you find out is how deep they have to drill for oil is way, way beyond any kind of fossil line, right? These
No
fuels are not
fossils.
coming anyway from any fossil fuels whatsoever. They're coming from much deeper, and actually, there's a lot of scientific proof and or theory that is saying that oil is actually a natural byproduct of the planet, and it's created by the various layers of the crust and how they move along with each other. All that nonsense about fossil fuel, which we still teach our kids in school today, is coming out of Rockefeller because he wanted to sell his gasoline, right?
Yep.
And
So
make it scarce too.
and make it scarce too, even
Yeah.
though there's an
Yes.
overabundance of the stuff.
Yeah. And it's being refilled. There's
It's constantly being remade because it's a byproduct of the planet. Yeah. But I mean,
yeah.
that's all connected to this same conversation. Like I said, you do a whole show on Tesla, no problem. That dude was right in the middle of it, everything. But I do want to get into my offer for today, and we come
Hmm.
back and talk more on the other things, of course. And there's this conversation is eternal. But actually, I want to do mine. So let me come over and switch you guys over real quick because I'm
Act,
gonna have
act, 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 act.
to. Okay. All right. Let me come over here and I'm going to let me see here. There it is. There it is. There it is.
Act, act, act,
All right. All right. So there's you
act, act.
guys. Now, of course, I left us with the cows, right? Because poor cows.
Yes.
You know, it's not.
Uh,
Why? It's not right. But
because Gary Larson loves cows.
Yeah, right? But here's the thing: we're talking about UFOs, unidentified flying objects, and we gave a definition in the very beginning of that because for what I wanted to do today, we talk about the metal ones, we talk about the glowing ones, we talk about the black knight, and all kind of that's all well and good, and that's kind of the normal conversation. But I want to talk about other unidentified things flying in the air. And let me just give a little spiel and then we'll have a conversation about it. But this is kind of interesting. What is that?
A
Little,
jellyfish.
it's like a black smoke ring of some kind, right? It's kind of weird. Well, how about these? Different places. Same looking thing. More cows. Watch out, cows. They're after you. But what is this? This is weird. This phenomenon has been. I just chose a few pictures, right? But this strange, black ring has been seen all over the world, and these images actually don't give you a really good idea of size. I've seen other images, which once again on Google I couldn't find, but that are actually quite large. They're really not small things. These are giant things. What is this? Now, this is something we could see in a science project create in the classroom, but it's black and they show up all over the place for no reason. What are these things? Are these some kind of weird governmental testing? What is it? It's weird. Right? Here's another thing. Now you look at this picture right here and you say, "Oh, that's fake. That's not someone who created that." No, dude, I've seen this live. This is the Norwegian spiral, and go check out the videos on it because it's freaky. It's really freaky, and a lot of people got pictures and videos of this in Norway. It wasn't one or two, there were hundreds of them who got pictures of this
Oh yeah.
because this went on for a long time. What the hell is that? That's not normal, right? What's creating this, right? Is this man-made? Is it some non-man-made? Is it some weird natural phenomena that humans have never cataloged before? Hmm. How about this? What the hell is that? That's something, right? Here's another one. Oh no. Look at that. Wow, look at them. What are these things? Look at this over here. What is that?
What about the disc? That's Tatooine.
Yeah, but no, this is
Yeah, the twin
dude.
suns. That is a weird one. The
There are
twin suns.
thousands of these pictures and videos. There's actually news
Hmm.
reporters doing weathercasts and stuff like that, and actually having it in the background. Some notice it, some don't. And I've actually seen a news reporter, just doing the normal nightly news, and he's noticed it. And he said, "What is that?" Good question. Why is this been going on, particularly the past few years? Now, of course, this is a conversation in Djibouti, right? And
Hmm.
and this has been going on for quite a while. And here's, of course, a artist impression of the Djibouti. But actually, there are many photos of Djibouti that look like this. And once again, I couldn't find them on Google. I should have went on some other channel like Onion or something. What's it called? The Onion? Not the Onion, but there's some other
Yeah,
place you
it's
can
it's
get
also it's also known as Nibiru for us Americans.
Nibiru or Djibouti.
Or
Okay.
Nibiru. Yeah.
You guys can't pronounce
Yeah.
crap.
I would recommend. I would recommend using Bing or DuckDuckGo if you're going to look for stuff off Google, because Google
Yeah, but
will.
that's all right.
Case in point, when I was looking up Project Blue Book, the very first thing when you put in Project Blue Book on Google is some TV show that nobody ever heard of,
Mm.
that was on the History
Oh, wow.
Channel. Not a link to the actual historical real thing that happened, Project Blue Book. No. We need to talk about the TV show first.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Google.
but this is weird stuff, and these are unidentified flying objects, right? Because they're not on the land, right? And this is freaky stuff, man. Particularly, I mean, these other ones you could hear people argue away, but if you go to like say WSO or those various sites that have been seriously have been cataloging this for years, it's just ridiculous. They have like a daily show where they show new pics from around the
Hmm.
world. It is ridiculous. These things I'm showing are nothing. They're nothing, right? These are obviously some manner of planetoid in the atmosphere. I mean, look at this right here on the right hand side. Look at that, and that's not the moon,
Hmm.
right? Look at these. Look at this one on the bottom right over here. You got the sun, and how beautifully it's illuminating. And don't miss it here. You can see the one sphere that's being illuminated, but look at the one above it, right? Don't
Hmm.
miss that one. There's two here, right?
That looks
And
like an
actually,
optical thing to me
it does, doesn't it? But then
from the
again, look.
camera.
No, hold on. We're not done though. Look down at the very bottom of the thing. We see another sun off in the distance.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey,
But
what about the your smoke rings reminded me of the sky halos, the white rings. I think they were seen in Russia.
oh yeah, they have those too. I just chose the black ones because they're more creepy. But there are a ton of those kind of phenomena, and there's a bunch of channels that cover it, and a lot of them they don't really point out the supernatural or preternatural aspect of these things. They just say, well, that's interesting, look at that weather thing, and they really kind of step aside from it and let you think, you know what they're saying, but they don't say it directly because they're worried about YouTube and other things like that taking them offline. But hey, Tommy Robinson, go ahead and copyright me, I don't care. But this well, the show oh sorry, right. But yeah, these rings are weird, dude. I don't know what they are. And if it was just one incident, it would be no big deal. But once again, I've seen hundreds of these photos. This is
Yeah,
a thing.
it's very
It's a
strange.
thing.
It's
Yeah.
very strange. There's nothing that I can think of in nature that would cause rings of black, whatever that is,
Hmm.
to just exist up in the clouds. Like, that's not how nature works. Nature doesn't work with that kind of precision in that way. Like, if you look at a cloud, it's pretty obviously a cloud, right? You can tell what a cloud looks like just by looking at it. Whereas those don't look like a cloud. They look like some form, something put them up there. Now, for what, who knows? But they're definitely not natural.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we get a lot of comments over here in the chat, and we see it's the bunghole of the universe. I don't know what that means, Comic Bob, but rock on. But we come in peace. Ray Thulu says coal burning locomotives can produce a ring like that. If you slam the dampener shut while the blower is running, then open it again. But I didn't see any evidence of train tracks in those pics. No, you saw a town. But that's that's the thing. Yeah, it doesn't. It looks like something that could be made. Like I said, the science class, you can make something like that. Thermal dynamics and all that. But it's just there's so many of them, and they show up in the weirdest and oddest random place, and it's a thing, right? Comic Book Bog says those are planets from the dimension next to ours, poking through the veil between universes. Maybe I just wish someone would take some time to explain it. Comic Book Buzz says, Nibuti, John the Big Booty. Dude, that is a legendary movie. Legendary. And we got to watch that, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. It's awesome. uh, Time slips causing optical illusion. J.J. Abrams lens flares. Yeah, right. The black ones were more creepy. Yes, they are. Ray
I
Thule
don't know
says,
about that.
well, they're
Look up
all
look up
creepy.
Russia look up Russia sky halo.
Hold on one second. One second. The last pic of the smoke ring looked like it was near a marina. Could be a diesel engine. Yeah. Well, once again, it could be many things. It's just there's so many of them. Therefore, I wish they would take some time. And I'm going to go look at that for that right now. But I want to make one last comment with the image that's on the screen. Why is someone not addressing this? All right, like the planet things I can get because they're not. Some of the pictures they have are actually crystal clear, but they do. You could say lens flare. There's all kind of arguments you make. Although these guys have gotten real scientific about proving it's not. But I get the argument on that size. This is not arguable. Right here in front of you, there's two suns in the frickin' sky, and there's been images taken all over the planet. Right? I mean,
Hmm.
literally thousands of them, literally, right? And nobody is addressing it. No one is coming on and saying it. They're just ignoring it and hoping it'll go away. This is a thing. There should not be two
Yeah.
suns in the air. You need to explain to me why there are two suns in the sky. Come on now. This is a thing.
Well, it's also not only are they taking it all over the world, they're using all different types of cameras. Like you'll have
Yep.
film, which you could say, okay, it's a mess up of the film. Okay, well, what about all these people using high definition digital cameras, using literal cameras you can basically are Blu-ray cameras that like Hollywood will use, that high quality, or some of these other people who are using even lower quality cameras and it's still doing it.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's all over. It's all different grades of photography. It's amazing. You can even see it on video. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
crazy
It's
that
very
they
clear.
won't talk about it.
Yeah, but I've
Yeah,
seen videos where people like sitting at the beach or sitting at a park or something like that, and everyone's looking up and pointing to talk about it. So who cares what the camera has to say? All those people are seeing it, right? And I
right,
chose these
right.
pictures specifically because they're showing very different angles of these shots, and it's a thing. And I really don't understand why these things aren't being addressed. And there's another subject. There's other subjects which we'll get into eventually. When we get into the ghost conversation, I have a couple of things I have to say about that. But for
Uh-oh.
me, well, no, seriously, because when I'm a very scientifically minded person, right? So,
Hmm.
I can sit and enjoy a chat about all the supernatural stuff, and no problem. It's fun, right? But when we come to
Hmm.
an actual legitimate conversation, then and I see something like this, then I want it to be scientifically explained. I want
Hmm.
the scientists to get on it and explain what the hell this is. I mean,
Right.
come on, right?
And all it does is lead towards more tinfoil like conspiracies when
Yep.
they don't, when they dismiss it, when they say, oh, it's just a camera mishap. This many camera mishaps from all different kinds of cameras. I don't buy that, and you don't buy that. You're not that stupid, and don't pretend that I'm that stupid. Um, it's obviously some form of now it could be a simple phenomena with the light atmosphere and light bouncing off of things in the atmosphere. It could be something that simple, but explain it. That's all we're asking for. Try at least give us something. Don't just tell us it. Don't piss on my back and tell me it's raining.
Yep.
Basically, is what I'm saying.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, and here's some more of them. I typed in white smoke rings over Russia that DeWolf asked me to do, and yet we got more of those black rings. More of them, different angles from what I had shown you earlier, right? Look at them all. And
Hmm.
these are the ones you're talking about, right?
No.
What is okay? Give me a very specific search for you.
Russia Sky Halo.
We're still seeing the suns, Chester,
Yeah, I know
in
you
the
guys
hangout.
are. I know you guys are. Yeah. Let me come back over and switch that. Unfortunately, Google changed their Hangouts again, so I, I have to literally go back and switch it back and forth. Where it used to be able to it used to automatically switch between what I was showing you. How nice and convenient. But it seems that all the updates YouTube likes to do likes to make things inconvenient or inconvenient. Sorry, like this thing I have to do now with the sharing, the audio issues. I mean, it's like you're supposed to be improving your site, not dumbing it down. Is this what you're talking about?
Oh boy. Why no, it's not. Go with disc, I guess.
Yeah, these are interesting conversations, though. These kind of light things, but that's getting more into flat Earth conspiracy theory arguments. Rushkin sky discs. Okay.
Disc? Yeah, try disc. This thing looks like Chitari needs to be streaming out of it. Why are you? Oh, you're using Google.
Oh,
You're using Google. I'm using Bing.
all right,
That's why
fine.
you can. Oh, wait. The one on the far right, maybe?
That's all right. I'll go Bing. God, Bing is such a memory hog. All right, so what am I going to do? Russian. What would we look at? Sky Halo, right?
Yeah, yeah. All right, do it.
Oh, boom.
There you go. Look at that thing.
Good old Bing. I wish you
Now
weren't
that, of
such a
course, was
hog.
observed by thousands of thousands.
Yep. Yep.
And Chitari look like they should be coming out of that. It looks like.
Yeah, doesn't it?
That is interesting. I mean, that looks like either the opening or the closing of a gateway. What I would think a
Mhm.
dimensional portal would look like, in all
Yeah.
honesty.
It made the news. I mean,
Yeah.
it was so widespread. It's like when you see the dozen lights flying around over Mexico City, right?
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
it's so widespread that it makes the news. They talk about it, and people call in to the police and the military asking what to do, or if they need to put a paper bag over their head or something.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
pretty interesting.
The Niburi
There's a lot of
searches are
stuff that
better too.
happens in the sky in Russia. In fact, it was just a few years ago. There was another. It looks like from the two videos I saw, basically a nuclear explosion just blew up off to the side of the video, because Russians apparently use a lot of dash cams. They like to keep dash cams on their stuff. So there was off to the side. There's what looked like a nuclear explosion just lit up the sky, this bright yellow and orange color, and then just went away. It was on the news. I don't think the Russian government ever said anything other than they don't know what it was. And there was a few different videos of it a few years back, which is another similar idea, similar phenomenon in the sky. Like, what's causing that? That could have been caused by any number of things, and maybe it was just military testing, but they're not talking about it.
Bing is a lot better.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah,
better.
Bing is a lot better.
But
It's
it's such a memory hog though, dude. It sucks RAM like crazy.
Google doesn't. Google has been another TFT talk. Google has been systematically replacing commonly searched terms with pop culture references, like I was telling you about. So, because they know people only look at the first, second, or third thing usually when they're searching, so they'll make sure those are at the top because heaven forbid you want to actually find out information that matters.
Mm, that's an interesting picture. I don't know if it's a real one though. That's kind of the problem too. People do what the hell? I have to do like this, I guess. Okay.
Oh yeah, they hoax and stuff just for the
Yeah.
fun of it.
Yeah, sure. I get it. I troll the troll mentality, right? Oh, here we go. This is the one I was looking for, and I could not find on Google. It no longer exists. Now, this little image right here is kind of an interesting thing because for this is several years ago, but you got the autistic types will spend ridiculous amounts of time in digging out incredible amounts of information, right? And
Hmm.
they had found that in Google Space, I don't know if you guys know that's a thing, but it is. Uh, there were actually several places that were pixelated out, right? And they were asking, why is this pixelated out? And of course they came to some the the understanding that from all these things we're getting from WSO and all the other people who are involved in the Djibouti stuff, that it's coming from the direction it should be coming from. So they thought that they were blacking out. Well, then all of a sudden, NASA or whoever, Google or whoever's in charge, they unpixelated it, and this is what we saw. And of course, this isn't the greatest image to see, but if you have it blown up and look at it in detail, what you see is this red kind of sun thing and 7 planets spinning around it. And they
Hmm.
hid this on Google Space for years, right?
And I'm sure they haven't given any
Hmm.
kind of explanation for what that is.
Oh no, of course
Why?
not. No comments. Yeah, no comment. But
Oh, that's in.
but the thing is, for me, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys are the same. I can hear all this kind of stuff and enjoy it for what it is. Here's a better picture
Mhm.
actually. I can enjoy it for what it is, and I assume I can full screen this. I can. Ooh, look at that. No problem. But the thing with it is though. When something comes to the point that it actually gets my attention, then I want an explanation for it, right? And for a long time, they would talk about Djibouti because I know all about Djibouti. I translate freaking Sumerian text, dude. So and don't let any of those people, those Sitchin haters, don't listen to them. Djibouti is mentioned often. Actually, now I believe I don't agree with Sitchin that there's a well, I didn't agree that there was a 12 planet aspect of what the way he was looking at it. Because most of the referencing to Djibouti is as Mars, right? It's one of the names of Mars.
Right.
And it was actually more like a title of Mars. And so I always saw Djibouti as being Mars. And if you read those old Mesopotamian texts, you'll find that the Anunnaki, right, the ones that are involved in those stories, were doing quite a bit of stuff on Mars. They were very involved over there in those stories, right? And so I always looked at it as, oh well, it's Mars, right? But then more recently, with all these things coming out, all the images, the pictures, these weird planets that are in the sky, double suns, and et cetera, and of course, governments hiding stuff and then not hiding stuff. It mm, I want an answer.
And double rainbows.
And double rainbows. I've seen many of those in my life, though. I lived in Hawaii. It's quite awesome, quite a common
Oh yeah.
occurrence, actually. But look at it. This is a more detailed picture. It's cool, yeah. And if you look at the colors of them here, they have different colors and stuff like that. And then you go back and look at those strange, odd planet-looking things we see in the sky. They match up. Weird, huh?
What?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Is that what
That's
you're
what I'm
trying to tell me?
that's what I'm trying to say. All right. So, do you guys want me to jump on to another another topic here in the search? Because as you guys know, we do the show a little bit differently. Usually, I do presentation setups like you saw me doing earlier with my spiel, but here we just search on the fly, and we're binging it today. So, what do you guys want me to search next?
It's a good question. I had a bunch of stuff and then I forgot. um, let's see. What
You
other
know,
very? Go ahead, DeWolf.
there was the the lights. Even Hank Hill went and saw the Marfa lights.
Martha
That was, yeah. It's not
lights.
necessarily it's not necessarily a UFO like in the sky. It's up on the
No,
side of a hill.
no, these are Christmas tree ornaments. Nope, nope. How do you spell the Martha?
Marfa, I think it's with an F.
Okay.
First off, you got to know exactly where you're going. You have to know how
Oh,
to spell it. You got to know the name of the location.
oh, they are weird. That's creepy. It's more of those little glowing globes, dude.
Yep. Little lights out there, and when you get close to them, like when me and Bobby did, they just disappear on you.
Hmm. Oh, look at that.
Uh huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of these glowing light
Yep.
things. I mean, there's been these things have been documented a lot. But yeah, it's why we have maps of Antarctica sans ice. Yeah, right, Bullet. Yeah, exactly. And we know model NASA is a fraud. Yeah, that's been proven long ago. Uh, but the weird thing about NASA is because a lot of I think a lot of Americans assume that NASA is a public company owned by the government. It's actually not. It's private. right?
Yep.
Uh, but they very much seem to be run by the government, don't they?
They do pretend as if they are. Yes.
Hmm.
Uh, Many organizations do that. It's very disgusting, really. But
The
yeah, there's a
Federal
lot of
Reserve.
these. There's a
Oh,
lot of these that
that's one of them.
all over the world. Actually, you'll see images of strange what looks like balls just floating. So many
Yeah.
stories above the earth and just flying around, zipping around. And like I said, they try and claim that it's just ball lightning, but ball lightning has pretty much been confirmed and observed and documented. We know what that is.
Hmm.
These are not ball lightning because these
No.
move in what appear to be sentient patterns. They don't just kind of float there in one spot, they go all over. Whereas ball lightning usually goes from point A to point B and then dissipates. Um, that's not what these are. And these are constant. Ball lightning is very rare. Like it's not something that would happen in the same field all the time, every time.
I love Model 3. He says Mars is Greenland. Yeah, it's weird, dude. There have been, if you want to understand what he's saying, there have been many images taken off the Mars rover, and people have actually gone and found the exact spot on Earth and taken pictures showing that it's exactly on Earth that the picture was taken. It's not on Mars at all. Yeah, that's a whole nother
Well, it
conversation.
looks, I mean, look at some of those pictures. They're obviously not on Mars. There's way too much atmosphere in some of those pictures for it to be on Mars.
And they keeps
It,
getting
it's
cleaned.
ridiculous that, yeah, it's ridiculous that people keep falling for it. I don't understand how that's even possible.
All right, now I got something here since we're talking about unidentified flying things. Have you guys heard the phenomenon of square clouds?
I
Ooh,
have,
no.
I have now.
It is weird, dude. Clouds are not square. Look at this. Look at this over here, dude. And I have been in a airplane. Now this one's not as good, but I've been in an airplane many times. And look at this. That is weird, dude. That is not normal. Something's wrong with the matrix, dude.
Mm-mm.
And because there's a channel, Mr. MB33B, I think it's called. He does a lot of weather stuff, and he talks about volcanics and earthquakes, seismic activity, and he talks about it in a connection to the sun. Because if you don't understand this, but this technology or understanding has been going on for quite a while now, that the sun has a direct relationship to the seismic activity on planet Earth. And this guy in the
Right.
group that he's with actually have accurately proclaimed or prophesied various earthquakes all across the earth very accurately. And But if you haven't seen Mr. MB333 B, I think it's called. But Go check him out. He's very scientific about it, and he's one of those guys I was talking about earlier. He doesn't say what he thinks it is. He just says that's interesting, and he's talked about these square clouds quite a bit, is why I mentioned it. But that's weird, dude. That's not normal.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with that. And
And
we also
nature
have other
doesn't
things.
make
Well, no, but
nature
like,
doesn't make angles like that.
yeah, and there's been a couple times too where we had going from pole to pole, not equatorially, but pole to pole. We've had actually a ribbon cloud that was many, many miles wide. I mean, like a couple hundred miles wide, or maybe it was a little less than that, but it was extremely wide, and it just went right around the Earth. There's a literal ring cloud that was encompassing the entire planet several times. Did the media talk about that? No, that's weird, dude.
Hmm.
Is it multiple chemtrails stacked on top of one another?
No, it was very visible, dude. It was weird. Let
Oh,
me search it.
There you go. Yeah, there's some more of those rectangles and or rectangles and square shaped clouds. That's insane, actually.
that's
Yeah.
That
the
they could
bottom
try and pass that
of a
off as just natural.
Now,
flying aircraft carrier.
Could be. Maybe that's how they hide it.
you know, and the thing with the ribbon cloud, which I'm looking for it, I'm not getting what I want. But the thing with that is, not only did they document that from satellite imagery, right? They also went out and had people around the world go out and take photos of it. So they have places from people from all the world just taking photos of the sky of these ribbon thing going from horizon to horizon. Literally is around the Earth. Why can't I find this? Uh, I don't know how else I'd look for it. A cloud encompassing the Earth. Hmm. Let me try this.
You, Chester, have mentioned a hoax.
No, I haven't. That's a
It's not
very,
real.
yeah, that's a very interesting one actually. I can't find it, but that's all right. But definitely go check that out because that was an interesting thing. And once again, there's several people talking about that, but the Mr. MB333B, he talked about it as well. But I mean, just look at these damn clouds, man. It's really creepy, man. What is this? This isn't right.
So the aliens realized that we're now able to see their craft. So then they cloak their craft in clouds.
Now hold on a second. Look at this one though. This one looks like there are a bunch of streams just going back and forth as if someone made that intentionally. Oh, now why would you do that though? Why would you need a big block cloud in the sky? What would that possibly do for you? Mm-hmm.
That's what I just said.
Chemtrails,
If you wanted to hide something from satellites,
right? Or people
you
seeing
didn't want any
stuff.
satellite pictures available.
You know, the thing is though, over here in Japan, we don't get chemtrails, dude. We don't have that. Which in a way proves chemtrails are a real thing because the government keeps saying it's nonsense, right? But the fact that you guys get them all the time and we don't get them at all, and here's the interesting thing too, this little village I live in, the city which I'm attached to, is actually a turning point for all the air traffic coming out of Kyushu, right? It always has been. Even back in the war, the Americans would fly out of Okinawa and they would turn over the top of this place and go into Honshu and do their bombing runs and stuff. But I don't know why, but it's just something about the position of this place. It's the perfect place to turn, I guess. Therefore, I get planes going over all the time here. Right, especially at night when we're walking our dog. I think I've counted a maximum of like 5 in the sky at the same time, actually. You can see the little blinking lights, and it's kind of cool, especially on a clear night. But the point being is, I get lots of airplanes over me, and I never see any chemtrails at all, anything. But you guys get them constantly. So there's definitely something to that. That's another TFT talk, I
True.
suppose. But maybe not. Maybe it's in. This is where it belongs, is right here.
Well, it's also interesting because, like you said, you don't see them over there. While at one side of their mouth, the government and their lackeys will say that, oh, it doesn't exist. It's just contrails. It's just contrails.
Yeah, but
Then
they're
on the other
not.
side of their mouth, their institutions and their agencies and things that are scientific in nature will talk about how they need to do this in order to try and cool the planet. Like you can see them give long talks about how they're going to put aluminum and all sorts of silica in the air to try and cool the planet to reflect more of the sun's rays. And it's like, well, which is it, guys? You can't have it both ways. You can't say they don't exist and then say, but this is how we're going to make them exist. Like that, what? That's nonsense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw these
No,
before
that's right.
the 2000s. I grew up, I watched, and I remember distinctly because I was always been fascinated with air travel. So I watched the sky a lot, and I watched aircraft, military and passenger jets, and I would see contrails. I would see them, and they would stream out, and I'd look up, what is this thing? What is this phenomenon? I find out it's a contrail, et cetera, et cetera. And then, lo and behold, you come into the 2000s, and then all of a sudden, there are these large streaks that are staying in the sky. They call them persistent contrails. Well,
What? Yeah,
there were no
why?
persistent ones before.
No, and like I
What were
said,
we doing then?
every day I have planes going over, and there is literally no contrails, right? But
Well,
Yeah.
the best
now,
part about it,
look at this picture real quick. Hold on a second. Look at this picture right here. What is that little like dot that my mouse is pointing at? It looks like some light in the sky, and there's like a sun down there. Huh? Huh?
it sure
Anyway,
does. That's interesting.
yeah, it's just I
But the
just
the
noticed
best
it.
part about it is it's so ridiculous for them to deny that it's something going on. Even let's just say it is completely, it's designed for completely altruistic reasons, and they really are worried about the sun being too hot and climate change and blah 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 blah. Okay, well, why not just admit that first of all, and second of
Mhm.
all, when you go and do sample studies of places in like California and places where there's a lot of air traffic, the sample at like the top of mountains and stuff, the soil samples will be inundated with all different forms of minerals that probably shouldn't be up there, at least not up there at that level. Like I know they did one in California at the top of one of the mountains out there. I can't remember which one.
Hmm.
And it was just ridiculous amounts of aluminum were in
Yeah.
this at the top of this mountain, which shouldn't
Inan,
be there. And the only
inan,
way it could be there is if it fell on it.
inundated is the word you wanted to say, but actually the actual word you should use was impregnated. But nevertheless,
True.
Matthew says, Chester, oh, what's up? Just got here. A lot of people think the cloud stuff is HARP related. Yeah, no, HARP's a whole nother conversation, right? And Curious 2A says, we get chemtrails a day or two before it gets overcast and rains. Yeah, there's a lot of theories behind this chemtrail stuff, but the one thing that is not is that it's not real, because obviously it's real. This is nonsense. We grew up in the country. We know this didn't used to exist.
Yeah,
This
I
is a
grew up
thing.
basically right next to an airport within, I mean, as close to an airport as you can get when I lived out in the country, but it was 15 minutes from my house. So planes were going over all the time.
You are slipping, you
A
know,
contrail,
Thunderous. You are slipping. Yeah,
I'm slipping.
I corrected your English, and you didn't mock me for it. What are you doing?
Oh, I was thinking about what I was about to say. But a contrail we used to see them all the time. We'd even see fighter jets go over. They would do maneuvers out of the local air reserve base. We'll go over, and it'll be up there for a little bit, and it'll usually though be right behind the plane. Within, I know obviously this is thousands of feet probably from my perspective, but still, it's not crossing the entire sky and
Yeah.
staying up there for hours on
Oh, no,
end.
no, it dissipates
That's
really quickly
absurd.
too. Yeah. I
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
actually, as a kid, look up at the plane contrails and count how long it take them for the contrail to go away. Just the thing a kid would do, right? This is not contrails. And look at the patterns. Planes don't fly like that. What is this? You're making a grid pattern. Why?
Hmm.
Right? What are you doing? And why is it only in America? Why only America?
Yeah, and aircraft actually they have designed routes that they fly for safe reasons, and it's not going to be it may be you may be a little off here and there, but all those if all those chemtrails or trails were from one aircraft to another aircraft, they should be stacked up right on top of each other, basically,
That's right.
one
Yeah.
after another row. And matter of fact, if this was a phenomena that happened too much, they would have to divert aircraft due to the ability not to see through them. Well, of course, we use
Yeah.
instruments, so that's not really
Well,
the case.
look at this right
But
here. Look at this picture,
but
dude.
yeah, this is a very interesting shot right here.
Yeah, because the
Apparently
engines
that
are up
plane's
front,
on
and there's
fire.
well, there's nozzles on there. They're showing the nozzles. Sorry, go ahead. I just thought this was an interesting picture.
Yeah. So yeah, you really when you look at aircraft flying, they have a flight pattern that follows one in, another one in, another in, even across country. There are pre-prescribed routes that are flown, and so you would have the same streak basically following one another. And these chemtrails don't do that.
Mhm.
In over one particular area of the sky, you have this grid pattern, and that is bizarre that you would have these perfect grids.
And another thing just pops in my head looking at this image right here. Why aren't the crazy eco hippies yelling and screaming about this? I mean, look at
Oh
that.
yeah,
I mean, right?
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
They'll be some of the first ones to shut it down when you start talking about, you know, it being more than just condensation trails,
Yeah, no,
which
this
is
is
hilarious.
ridiculous.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a ridiculous position to hold both sides of, but they seem to.
Mhm. Here's another one. We have the sun, and we got some kind of other light off here to the side. It's another one. Because there are people who suggest that there's really two arguments with chemtrails, it seems. One, that they're doing something to deal with global warming, which is nonsense because there is no such thing. Global warming has been
Hmm.
moving at a very steadied rate for the past, 12,000, 15,000 years. And it
Yep.
goes up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, little by little raising. It has not had a big jump since the Industrial Revolution at all. It's complete nonsense. It's just a way for them to tax you for breathing, right? So the argument saying that they're doing this for global warming, nonsense. Now, are they doing it for some other purpose? Maybe. But there's also an argument for people that they're doing this to block out things so you can't see stuff in the skies like those planets I was seeing. But that seems a bit ridiculous too, because that's a daunting effort. How are you going to block out the sky? So I don't know. Chemtrails are a thing, but what they're really doing with it is interesting, and the fact that there are so many strange amounts of metals being used in it, like Thundar had mentioned, it's a thing, man.
There's also the
Well, the other,
medical aspect, what it
yes,
changes people's, body chemistry.
Yeah.
yeah, aluminum is very toxic. I know people don't think so because we use a lot of aluminum cans for things, but those cans are supposed to be treated so that it won't wash off too much in what you're drinking or eating. But aluminum itself is very toxic to humans. It's one of the most toxic materials on the planet, in fact.
Mhm.
And if they're putting that up in the sky and it's obviously going to fall down to the earth, that's getting right into the ecosystem in places it doesn't belong. There's no telling what kind of effect that would have on the population's health. Um, it's very interesting how vociferously, there you go, Chester, there's a word for you,
Yes.
they
Nice
will
word.
Oh yeah.
deny this, and even to the point of, I've even seen to the point of where they want legislation to get people to shut up about it, to try and make it basically illegal to talk about.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's an insane
Which is
situation.
funny because you can see it so easily. I was at an airport and I flew in with someone and regular people, right? So I'm walking out with some regular people, people that were not me, right? The other regular people, and some of them looked up, and on that day there happened to be a lot of these crisscrossing trails in the sky, and this man and this woman, they looked at them for a second as they're heading into the parking garage. One of them says, "Huh." And then the other one, and I go, "Yeah, really?" And then of course the woman then looks up and she goes, "Oh, weird." So people are seeing it. It's just, is it registering as something, to be of concern or not?
Right.
That's a good point.
There's one other thing I've noticed when we're talking about things in the sky, unidentified objects in the sky. I don't know how it is in Japan. I know there's a lot of villages and things in Japan, but here in America, I've noticed the sky is always hazy anymore. Like, it's super rare when we'll have an actually clear sky. Now, I grew up out in the country away from the city a little bit, but even when I go out there, I look up and it's got this weird white haze to it. Um, and to me, that seems to have only happened about the same time the Wolf started, talking about in the 2000s. Right around that time
Yeah.
is when that started to happen. Because I vividly remember, my wife does too, and anybody I've asked about this, remember the sky being clear. You could see all the way to the stars, and it's not like our pollution's worse. Our pollution's gotten better all throughout America. So what's going on there? What's causing the sky to haze? And it seems to be only in America, because I've
Wow.
seen other people and talked to other people around the world, and they're like, no, no, I don't see that at all.
Oh no, this little village is protected by a big old mountain, so we don't get a lot of light pollution from the city on the other side. Actually, star viewing here is quite nice. I do it all the time. Beautiful
Yep. Yeah,
starry
you
nights.
can't, even out in the country, you can barely see the stars now,
It's weird.
for where I'm at.
Now, as far as the
Yeah.
haze goes, I do live in Japan, the land of mist. So but that's kind of like been going on for thousands of years. So I don't think it's a new thing.
Yeah.
Matthew Grievous says that Chester also, Bill Gates has talked about geoengineering and chemtrails. Maybe people have, dude. Actually, you know. But this conversation about UFOs, unidentified flying objects, things that we see in the sky that shouldn't be there or are questionable. Now we've certainly gone off the beaten track of this conversation. We did start with it, but I just thought today it would be more interesting to look at the broader idea of what is going on in our skies, because the simple fact is a lot of people don't really pay much time attention looking up. And
Right.
it's a very it's there's some very bizarre things going on in the sky all over the world, and there seems to be centers of information that are coming out. Some of them in America are around military bases, which I think is very interesting for the argument that they're military craft. But then Russia and Mexico are inundated by these objects, and there's so many photos and videos coming out of those places. It's ridiculous. And then again, once again, it brings me back to the two sun thing, which I know I keep standing on that, but that's a thing, dude, and that needs
Hmm.
to be dealt with. And I don't understand. I really don't understand. That's so easy for people who are seeing it to see it, and a lot of people in many places that are seeing these things are concerned, and they should be. There should not be two suns in the sky. And
Well,
there's
that's
a
why we have so much global warming.
well, we don't though. But here's this interesting thing we do have though, and now this is an interesting conversation. I think that maybe a lot of people don't know. I don't know if you're aware, but currently, for the past couple of years, I guess, the scientists, the weather scientists, have been tracking two new types of UV light. Now, and this of course explains why things are melting and plants are all brown and stuff like that. It's not necessarily much harder, but the sun feels harder, right? It's the UV light.
Hmm.
The temperature isn't really adjusted, but the UV light, because there's two new ones. This isn't my opinion. This has been scientifically put out there, right? And but here's the thing: they saying that the reason for that is because the sun is in a cycle, as it always is, and the sun is going into a little bit of a sleeping mode here. And actually, we're going to get much colder weather coming up in the future for a bit of time. Nothing weird; it happens all the time. And like I said, it's a cycle. And because we've never, the last time this happened was 400 years ago, which is an interesting number. We could get into the Nibiru conspiracy a lot deeper if you'd like with that 400-year period thing. But the last time it happened, we didn't have the technology to actually, track the event, and we do now. And of course, these sun and weather guys are really excited about all the tracking information they've been getting along the way here. But they're basically saying this: our sun is putting it out. Well, I'm asking the question. Well, maybe these two new UV light sources we're getting aren't coming from our sun. Maybe they're coming from that second one, right?
Could be. Could very well be. It is interesting that all this stuff seems to be happening relatively all at once, and at the same time, you have our lovely governmental agencies all decrying something that is just nonsense when it comes to man-made climate change. Um, when we know for a fact that these cycles have happened forever,
Yeah.
like literally forever. That's interesting. Comes up with nothing.
Look at
Um,
that, baby. I love it when a plan comes together. Yeah.
about because, like you said, probably what about 400 or 500 years ago, we had what they call historians have called
Wow.
the mini ice age, with a big chunk of the northern hemisphere frozen. I'm sure the southern hemisphere was too, frozen,
Oh yeah.
basically frozen all year round.
That's right.
There's
Yep.
even talk in some old books of being able to walk across the English Channel, just walk right
Oh
across it
yeah.
because it was frozen solid.
Absolutely. Yeah. But
So,
there are cycles from 400 years before where it didn't get that cold though. But the
yep,
last one was really bad though. Yeah, it was a mini ice
yeah,
age. The whole world was in a deep freeze. But dude, look at this right here.
I
Every
see,
everything
I
is
see it.
spelled correctly. Every other search I put in today, no problem, things came up. But Niburi 400-year cycle. Am I spelled anything wrong? Have I made a mistake? Nope. How in the world does that not come up with something when we know it's a topic of conversation? We know it is. That that is interesting.
Well, unless it's Nibiru instead of Nibiri.
It's Niburi. Trust me.
There you go. Like that right there.
Yeah. Well, how do you guys pronounce it?
I've always heard it
Nibiru.
Nibiru.
Nibiru. I guess you could do, but Niburi.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm in a different position. You guys are. But
Yeah, you are.
yeah. Oh, video. Don't want to do that. But
That'll kill the radio star.
Yeah, will. Anyway, I'm not going to get into. I won't get into that, I guess, especially because Bing doesn't want me to have anything to do with it. But on the image side, or maybe there's just not a lot. Maybe it's just a thing that's talked about and there's no imagery. But that is a very interesting conversation when you get into the 400-year cycle of Nibiru, because if you go back and read Sitchin and understand that Sitchin is not perfect. He's translating stuff from many languages and putting them into English. Eventually, they went into English. So it's not perfect, but it's very interesting what he did with that, and it opened up the door where you're getting a lot more accurate work coming out these days, which is awesome. But he really was looking at trying to understand what a sar is. Now, a sar is what the ancient Mesopotamians would call a single year of Nibiru, or the planet of the gods, what have you. And he had translated that down as being 3,600 years. But the problem is the 36, the 360, the 3,600. This is very much part of the cultural tradition and superstitions of things, and I just don't think it really translates out to that. As a matter of fact, I don't think they give us a really clear understanding of what a SAR is, from my point of view. But we have had some other really good scholars put some work down on this, and they are actually looking at being Asar being a 400-year thing, and that's very, very interesting, because we know that every 400 years we have this weird sun activity that's going on. It's been documented since the early Middle Ages, actually. So we have many, many of these cycles that have been documented. Um, but my postulation would be that well, maybe it has nothing to do with our sun. Maybe it is, as far as some of these other scientists that have put forward these theories. Maybe it's just the cycle of Nibiru coming in. And once again, a lot of people like to dismiss it or laugh at the idea of Nibiru, but the thing with it is how it's not weird at all. If you listen to the space scientists, if you choose to do that, then what they will tell you is, looking out into space with the Hubble telescope and all the other great tech that we've put up in space, supposedly, that most planets, suns, are actually binary. It is the most common thing to see is binary. And the idea that Earth, our sun, Sol, is a part of a binary system is not a new thing. This has been put forward many times before. So, what do you guys think about that idea? That Nibiru is just simply our sister sun, and it's nothing more weird than that.
It could
I
be.
actually think that these twin suns aren't actually twin suns, that the sun is actually probably in a different area of the sky. And both of these lights you're seeing are the eyes of Galactus sizing us up.
Maybe that could be what it is. Yeah.
We could. I mean, that's very well possible because if we're at a certain position to the sun, we wouldn't see the other one if it's right next to it, or relatively right next to it. Could very well just be eclipsing it most of the time, and then occasionally you catch it when it's just at the right angle. It's very possible.
Yeah, they call it hair copula, colobus here, but yeah, it isn't that big. It's not that big. That's an error. Lens flare, lens
Because
flare.
Chester knows.
Well, no, because the information we have, the pictures that we have, like the ones we showed, it's not that big.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, slightly bigger than Jupiter. It's not that much bigger than Jupiter. It's a sun though. But yeah, and here they're showing this run through here of what's going on, going through our system. I don't know. It's a very interesting theory and idea. I think it doesn't do any harm, because if this is simply our sister sun, then it's been passing by us for for as long as the Earth has been here, right? So it's not like it's going to end us. I just wish there wasn't so much stigma and nonsense and superstition and all that kind of crap that the governments are, you would think, would be more modern, but they're all stuck deep in that superstition stuff, right? That's a lot of the reasons why they don't tell us this stuff. And I wish they would just look at it from a scientific point of view. Hey guys, we have our sister sun has been discovered. Let's take a look. Let's research it. Let's send a satellite out to it and see how close we can get and get some imagery like we do with our own sun. That would be cool,
Well,
wouldn't
here's
it?
part of that. Here's part of that idea, though, what you're talking about, because you said science, right?
Hmm.
Science is not going and looking at ancient scriptures, you know. So they're not looking at things from Mesopotamia and what they're saying and trying to postulate science based upon that. To them, those are just stories, and they're all fake, made up myths and legends,
Oh, you can
right?
totally
So,
ignore that though. Just throw that completely out. Just go look at the weird sun that's come into the system.
oh well, you know,
I
how
mean,
can we
right?
look at that weird sun though? Once again, if we've never, if we're not going out there and we're making stuff up about space, which I don't believe in. I believe that that space actually does exist,
Sure.
and that we are looking at it and sending things out there to look at it.
And of course,
But
but now that you did mention the Bible and the all the other extra Bible books that, of course, there's thousands of them written, they talk about this very clearly. Once again, it brings me back to this, dude. It kills me when you go to the ancients. They tell you exactly what's what. Right? Like the pyramids, we have no idea what they were used for. We think they were tombs. Why? The ancients told you what it was. It was a building used to communicate to the heavens. I mean, et
Hmm.
cetera, et cetera. All the ancients tell you exactly what's going on, but they ignore it completely. It just kill. Oh God, it pisses me off, dude. It's just oh, you bastards. Anyway, sorry.
yeah, because everything goes to a higher power. Everything that we do in this
It's
world,
true.
if it's not for a higher purpose, then it is for naught. And that's exactly what everything else you're talking about. All the ancient monuments were built for. It was built for a higher purpose, to learn something, to either attain knowledge, speak to God, entities, and the like, right? Otherwise, everything that you're doing is for naught. And we nowadays we're fine with that. There's this idea that, oh, it doesn't matter if I die and become dirt. You know, that's all life's all about anyway. And you know, when you look at the ancients, they all knew different. You know, and that's what's different between, whoa, what is that picture?
That's an
Um,
interesting one. Yeah.
about the ancient world and today, all the way up to 1600, right? Um, Previous to that, everyone knew that there was a higher power and a reason for doing things. You know, that's why the indulgences were something to have, to go on crusade, right? To kill an
Hmm.
infidel so you can buy your way into heaven.
That's
That
right.
that idea has only been gotten rid of since the 17th century,
Hmm.
and we're in a new time and a new world where we're thinking differently, and you're seeing how this world is developing because of that different idea.
Well, and it's interesting the timing on it actually, because if you the conversation we're having, and this is an interesting thing from my point of view. I have my own scientific endeavors, which are basically just historical, linguistic based things, right? But as an amateur, just for fun, I enjoy studying all kinds of science, physics, and all these kind of conspiracy things are fun too. It's just because of the way I like to do things. Many of us here, I think, are very similar. But if we think about the timing of it, though, right? Because 400 years is this supposed cycle of the sun. Now, is it just a sun cycle, or is this Niburi thing part of it? This Planet X, wormwood, whatever you want to call it. Is this part of the scenario of what's going on? Is that have something to do with it? But if we go back 400 years and we look at what was happening, what a chaotic time. Now, of course, we talked about how all the reports, it was super cold. You could walk across the English Channel, etc., etc. But look what else was going on, right? You had the Reformation taking place, right? The amount of bloodshed and amount of books burned and the nonsense that was going on worldwide. You don't see your textbooks in the schools teaching you about this stuff, guys. But it was an absolutely traumatic time worldwide. If we go and we look at, because for me personally, I want to have the most broadest understanding as I can. I think this is something that a lot of scientists make a mistake with because they become so focused on a narrow thing that they can't see the big picture. But if you look at that moment in time, You had the unification of Japan, which that sounds wonderful. No, it wasn't. It was bloody. The warfare going on in Japan was ridiculous. We had the changing of the dynasties in China. We had India was in full on revolt and war. All across the Middle East was absolute nonsense going on. We had all across Europe. They had the Great Reformation, which was just we don't even know how many people are dead from that and how much things were destroyed. We do know that most every book that existed in Europe at that time was burned and rewritten, right? So 400 years ago, this cycle of this sun was an absolutely nasty time. And look at the world today. It's kind of interesting.
Well, it's more likely that this cycle has happened before, and
Yep.
that that Nibiru has happened like this, and it's also then more likely that the people that should be afraid of Nibiru coming around again are not us; it's the
Hmm.
people beforehand, and that we are actually the people from Nibiru and have already taken over the planet in the first place.
Maybe. That's interesting. But I mean, it's not just that, dude. Go 400 years before that, though. What was going on? The Inquisition. Go 400 years before that. What was going on? The Dark Age. Go 400 years
Oh
before
yeah,
what was that? The fall of Rome. 400 years before that, the ridiculous wars that were going on across the planet. 400 years before that, the Greek insurrections. We keep going back, right? We come into every 400 years, you go back, there's absolutely pure panic, war, destruction going on this planet. Serious stuff. Now, it's not like you haven't had a day in your life that there hasn't been some war going on somewhere on this planet. That's just us humans. But we have better and worse times of warfare. Right, and if you look back in the 400 this 400-year cycle, each one of them falls on a very momentous historical moment. It's is it coincidence? Is it ironic? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, and you can check that for yourself, by the way. You don't need to listen to me at all. All right? I mean, you don't need to listen to me. Go check it out yourself. Go back 400-year segments from now and just keep look at exactly what's going on. Just go do it.
Well, that's the cyclical. Yeah, that's very cyclical of people, be it our spirituality or
Hmm.
intellectual capabilities and resource management, um, birth rates, and all these things. There's a lot of cycles that do indeed continue throughout the earth, even
Sure.
without Nibiru having to be involved.
Maybe, maybe not. I'm just saying that it could just be humans, or maybe it's something more. Is my point? Because is it a coincidence or is it just us? But because that 400-year pattern and there are some doctors, historical professors that have done very impressive work. I mean, there's a many books written on this subject. If you go back and check it out, it's significantly different than the normal angsty human murderous nature coming out. It's more than that. And it's quite dynamic because if you look at the world right now, we're sitting at a time that's very peaceful. We have in general a very soft population across the world, and the Western world in particular. We may well be sitting at the best time humans have had in quite a while. But we're also on the verge of war everywhere, right? Europe is really close to sparking off. America, you have these absolutely insane people. Now, to be fair, that cycle of insanity usually lasts about 4 or 5 years, and we're coming up on that right now. So we'll see what happens. But these crazy SJW types might be going away soon. But it is interesting where the world sits, and we have all these things, weird stuff in our sky. And if you go back in those 400 year intervals, once again, you start getting, if you read a lot of stories, they are talking about things in the sky again, right? Because it's not like this has never been mentioned before, dude.
Oh, I think they're going away for sure, Chester. That's all I'm at liberty to say on YouTube.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it is cyclical. DeWolf's point is very valid one, dude. We humans have our own cycles, right? And and they're not they're usually very ugly ones. But the SJW cycle, because it's once again, it's not like we haven't seen this before. They're not new. They're not doing anything unique or interesting. They think they are. But it usually lasts 4 or 5 years, and we're coming up on that right now. So we'll see how that goes. But it's a good point by DeWolf. I just think
Well,
it's interesting.
one of the greatest times of turmoil that we had recently was possibly right World War II.
Hmm.
But and of course, if that's the case, then we've basically been reset, right? And so we're at the beginning of a new stage. We have over 350 years still, left to go. But if you go further back, you're talking one of the greatest revolutionary time frames of Earth was the American Revolution, because the mindset change
Hmm.
through the concept of governance,
It's true.
and that really it altered the course of history. So you're talking at that point. Now we're at 240 years, so we're easily at, say, a 300-year marker, which means should have only 100 years left. The
Yeah,
next generation should be that one going through the next Inquisition.
I think the point I'm trying to make to you, though, is these things like the
Yeah,
Revolution, World War II, they pale in comparison. That's the point I'm trying to make. They're bigger than that, dude. We humans are always murdering each other. It's what we do. And actually, you
you're
go
talking
back.
cataclysmic events.
Yes, dude. And if you go back to the 1800 year, where it's just after Revolutionary War, and of course getting into the French one, there is some really interesting. You want to get into conspiracy theories? There's some interesting stuff around that time as well. But no, the 400-year cycle is more epic than that, right?
And it involves these lights in the sky, you're saying, and
it
things in the
involves people
sky.
seeing planets and all that kind of stuff is entwined in it. And like I said, people really don't understand how absolutely vicious the Reformation was and what was going on worldwide. There was just full on bloodshed at just ridiculous levels. People just don't know because the teachers don't teach it, dude. But I mean, Europe was literally reset in the Reformation, dude. The amount of death and destruction, we can't even calculate it, right? And we know that they rewrote the history for their own purposes, right? The Protestant Reformation. It's way bigger and way more serious than you realize. And I would suggest go have a read on it and try to find information and learn a little bit about it. But it makes World War II, it pales in comparison. Now we're talking about the amount of death and involvement and stuff. World War II, of course, the population is much bigger, yada yada yada. But the actual depravity and what was going on worldwide was way heavier than what when it went on in World War II. A lot of people like to focus on numbers, like for instance the 6 million dead Jews. Well, I mean, I'm sure a lot of Jews died. We know they did, and because our military came across them starving in camps, right? And that's mainly what they were. Those pictures you see aren't of this. Some reason people take and connect gas chambers to starvation. I don't get it, but they're both horrible, of course. But they were mainly starving, just like the German people were. But that 6 million number, is that real? Because if you go back and you look historically in newspapers for like the 60, 70 years before that, the Jews have been using that 6 million number dead Jews, or 6 million Jews in danger, 6 million this, 6 million that. They've been using that for a long time, dude. It's part of their prophecy, right?
And what you're saying is that Reformation time frame, which was 1600s, is back about 400 years. And so we are set now, as we see these things in the sky, for this type of depravity and killing and desolation.
Which we're kind of seeing in a way. It hasn't blown off like that though, and I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying that this conversation that's been talked about in several books by various professors that have documented the historical aspect of these things. It's very interesting, is what I'm saying, because we go back 400 years before that. Well, that's in the Inquisition, right? And that was really ugly and bad, and it wasn't just in Europe; it was worldwide. And then we go back to the Dark Ages, 800. That was that was really bad, right? What was happening worldwide, et cetera, et cetera. If you broaden it and you go look beyond the European experience in those moments, you see what was going on worldwide was equally bad. It's just most people don't look beyond Europe. It's all about the Europeans. But if you look
That's
in
true. Yeah.
Asia and
Yeah.
India or what have you, it was ridiculously bad things that were going on same time. Right. That's all I'm saying. I'm not predicting anything. I'm just saying that it is an interesting conversation, and there's a few books you should go check out that are a really fun read, I think.
Well, the interesting greetings, everyone. The interesting thing about the cycle that you mentioned
Hmm.
is that scientifically, just pure science here, the human biology, like every other biology on the planet, we're made out of chemicals and electricity of energy of some kind,
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it. And every time the moon gets closer to the Earth, our chemical makeup, our energy makeup
Hmm.
within the body changes. It becomes a profound effect on our psychology.
Yeah,
Just like the cycle of a woman's cycle every month, the chemical makeup in her body, it has a profound effect on her psychologically.
hmm,
You can't get away from it. It's just like chemical drugs. Yeah, they will you. You can't
sure.
mentally get yourself off of it. Well, the thing is, with this 400-year cycle that you've been mentioning, is that once this second sun comes into play, it will have a profound effect on humanity and on anything on the planet. To such a degree, what you said about depravity and all that stuff, it's within the realm of science. As that much energy, that much chemical imbalance within the biology of this planet will cause that significant shift.
Sure. And if this is something coming off our sister sun coming, because we know the sun and moon do affect us, and that's where we get the word loony, as George just said. But if it is getting closer and closer, then the effect is going to be starting earlier than just one moment, right? It's going to be over a period of time, however long it takes for that thing to come into the system and leave it. Maybe that's 80 years on both sides, possibly, right? And that would explain the buildup of violence and stuff like that as well. I'm not making any statements, guys. I just think it's a very interesting conversation. And Eric's Boyd says that 400 years before that, Chester was born. Thanks, man. Zach Hawkins says geoengineering is patented. Yes, it is. Cloud seeding was used to flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail to disrupt the Viet Cong troops during Vietnam. You can look it up. I don't like ingesting chemicals without my consent. Oh, we're back to chemtrails. Yeah, dude. Fair point, though. Good point.
Well,
He
the other
says,
thing
"Damn it,
about
I missed the
chemtrails,
beginning. Can you start over?" No.
the other thing about chemtrails is that they are illegal. They are a form of medication, and uh, within North America, Canada, and the United States, it is illegal to medicate someone without their knowledge or approval.
Yeah, well, when the government doesn't care what our opinion on stuff is, dude. Obviously, quite clearly. And I'm not sure here in
Well,
Japan. They probably have the right to do whatever they want to us, probably.
it's no different than the was it the fluoride in the water? That is
Oh yeah.
a form of medicating the
Yeah,
public,
but that
and
was
that
that
is
was openly put in though. That wasn't a hidden thing.
no, of course not. But still, they allowed it, and it's completely legal. And no one stepped up to
Hmm.
challenge this because, um, like Caesar and Hitler before us, if you're going to lie to the public, make it so big that it's impossible for them to, you know, think
Yeah, I
anything
get you,
else.
but I don't think Ethan has anything to do with weird weather patterns and second suns, though.
Dun-dun.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all week. Uh, but yeah, no, a good point. We do know the sun and the moon have an effect on our psychology. They do. And absolutely, if you had a second one come in, why wouldn't it cause an effect? And that could explain the uptick in extreme violence and stuff that goes on. I'd say the one thing though that there have been moments in the past in that 400-year cycle where there's been a lot of asteroid and meteorite strikes on the planet, and there's been a lot of actual natural disaster type of things. But this doesn't happen all the time because certain people are really panicked, thinking the world's going to end. It's nonsense. This if this is real. Which it seems like it is, or something similar to it is, then this has been going on since the beginning of time. So it's not a big deal, right? And besides, if you go look at things, our uptick on earthquakes and things like that are way off the scale. Since the 80s, actually, the scale they just been getting ridiculous. We get thousands and thousands a year now. It's way beyond what it's supposed to be. Way beyond. So it just doesn't feel that way because it's not hitting you and it's all over the planet. But we actually do have a lot of tectonic activity that's going on, a lot of flooding, a lot of stuff that is happening. We're just a little better to deal with it these days. We have the technology to swing, roll with the punches.
Super volcano confirmed. It's coming.
Well, the Yellowstone thing that is a serious concern because that damn thing
I
is
know.
it's raising, dude.
Yeah, that goes and that changes the entire world instantly. It'll never be the same.
True.
America will pretty much be over, and a lot of the world will be over with it.
It'll come back, dude. We've had those super volcanoes go off many times in the past, dude.
I don't think
The
America
humans
will
have
come back
survived.
with about 45% of it gone.
Well, maybe not. I mean, America would be gone, but I'm just saying that humanity would survive. I mean, we've been through these kind of disasters before, many times.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, the loss of life would be astronomical. There's
Oh, it
really
would
no
be
way to
bad.
even really gauge it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had one of those problems about 3,000 years ago, a little over 3,000 years ago. Of course, we had big old volcano go off in Malaysia, super volcano, and it took out that region real hard. Yeah. It happens. There are many. We have many documented events. Of course, Pompeii was also thought to be related to a larger extended event that was going on across the huge geographical area, and it was just one of the things that happened. Of course, Pompeii is a very interesting because we have so much information that we can gain from it. But it is believed to have been part of a larger geological event, not just an isolated one. Anyway,
Right. Absolutely.
George, before we get out of here, is there anything specifically you would like to talk about?
No, no. I just came in when I did, which was about 10, 15 minutes ago.
Hmm.
I was on a mission. But the conversation you were talking about really perked my ears up regarding the cycle. And it was a profound memory for me when I actually looked at all this stuff back in high school when I was trying to figure out the history of the world and the unknown pieces that my history teacher actually pointed me towards. I asked her to start asking her questions, and she said, "Well, that's why we don't teach that stuff." And I said, "Why? Why is all this information hidden?" She says, "Well, it's not really hidden. We just don't talk about it. And if you want to
Hmm.
find it, start looking in." And she was very cryptic. She said, "Start looking into the cycle of the world, cycle of humanity,
Yeah,
and then you'll be able to put all the pieces together." I never
that's true.
understood what she said in any profound sense. I could just put the pieces here and there together. It's just when you were talking about it that I started going, "Oh my God!" Something that I had a conversation 40 years ago has now just come full circle.
Yeah. And Eric Boyd here says something very interesting. Uh, Matthew 24:8. Then again, what do I know? Exactly, dude. Interesting you mentioned that though, George. I had a high school history teacher, and she was an absolute iron lady, man. She was strict. She was a hardcore teacher, and a lot of kids hated her. I loved her though because, and she was all about, learning the subject matter, right? But she said something very interesting to me too. That I've always kept with me, and because she, like I said, she was a real stickler for dates and things like that for the test, right? But she said that just because it's written down doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I like to add the more um, the hive mind of the normal people come together and talk about things and discover through the hive mind that is not the quote unquote the professionals that we all put our trust in, the more layers that we begin to peel away of the lies, and quite frankly, the closer we are to the scriptures than ever before.
Yeah, it always comes back to that. DeWolf was talking about that earlier. DeWolf, would you like to give some closing comments on today?
Yes, of course. Just be sure to keep looking up. And in this day and age, um, being alert to your surroundings is, of course, necessary for all kinds of means. But we also have our cameras, we got our phones, we got things available. If you ever see anything, hear anything, and you can snap a picture both of something in the sky and or on the ground that's large and walking around instead of floating, go ahead and post it over
Yeah,
to Fanspeak
please.
in our Facebook chat there, and you can tag it TFT, and we would love to talk about it.
There you go. How about you,
Or,
Thunder?
or you can tag it as a Chester sighting.
There you go. Large hairy thing
Not
moving
much.
across the edge of the forest. Yeah.
Not much. The only thing I would have to say is always remember to look up, because the Earth is a beautiful place, but the sky is magnificent.
This is a
Whoa!
very good point. How nice. That was poetic even. I guess my
Namaste.
namaste indeed. And I wish I could end it on that, but I have to give my last little bit. And my little bit is this: talking about UFOs, going back to the original conversation of metallic objects. Um, I was duck hunting. I was probably about I don't know, 17 maybe. I was sitting there by myself because the person who was supposed to be joining me didn't come out because it was too damn cold. It was like -40. My beard was a solid stick of ice. But I was sitting in that duck blind and I had all my decoys out and I'm going to get me some ducks. And I did get some ducks that day. But while I was sitting in that duck blind waiting for some ducks to come along, I was sitting on this river, right? It was actually more of an inlet. And I don't know. I just kind of caught it perfectly. You know how sometimes your eyes are at the exact exact right spot they should be, and you catch stuff. Well, there was this craft that was moving very fast, but it wasn't so fast that I couldn't follow it with my head. But it was moving. It was all the other on the other side of the inlet, but it was below the tree line, right? So it was what 20 feet maximum, right? It was probably less than that, and that thing was booking, and it was a metallic object. It was a aircraft size, and of course, because the speed of it, I couldn't really get a good look at exactly what it was, but it was some kind of flying aircraft. And I still to this day have no an idea what that was. Was that some crazy American pilot, fighter jet pilot, literally skimming 20 feet off the water? Is that something they're allowed to do? But I always kept that in my mind because I don't know what it was, but it was certainly unidentified. And it was an experience that I'll never forget. So it is what it is. Nevertheless, guys, thank you very much for joining us today. We really love these TFTs. They're a lot of fun. This is, of course, has nothing to do with comic books, but it's a really fun to have these conversations. Now, I guess we need to make a decision before we move on today as what we're going to talk about next week. And hmm, any suggestions from the panel here or the chat?
I say let the chat decide. If anybody out there has something, somebody had said something earlier. I'm trying to remember what it was. Something they want us to talk. We can talk about Tesla.
We could.
That's a very fun one. That's a less, well, mostly less cosmic one. There's some cosmic stuff, but mostly less cosmic one.
It is.
Yeah. Well, and with Tesla, that means we're going to get into these other crazy guys that have popped up through history, and also the government conspiracies that are surrounding what happened to each and every one of these scientists. Like the 100-mile-a-gallon engine that runs on water. Whatever.
Right, right, yeah. And of course, that could lead us into the conversation of several scientists have disappeared mysteriously after making certain statements. Like one dude after meeting with Zachariah Sitchin and saying he had a reveal to give to the news press, and then he died, like really, really weirdly,
Well,
like timely even.
how about this? This will be a very fun thing, I believe, and that is, when are we looking at the perpetual engine?
Yep. That once
Right.
again
Yeah.
could come off the Tesla conversation, right?
No,
Yeah.
with a shtick, and the shtick is that we Google it, or sorry, we do a search on YouTube. I've done a search on YouTube, and there's a lot of people who have created the perpetual engine, whether it's
Yep.
electronic or water based, and they all work. I've tried one. I tried the pitcher perpetual engine, where you have a pitcher of water, or actually not really water, it's more like oil, so it won't evaporate. And the pitcher has a long tube going upwards, so that the weight of the water in the pitcher actually pushes the liquid up the tube, and then the tube curves back onto the pitcher. Now, between the tube, between the water or the liquid, from the curvature of the tube above the pitcher, falls into the pitcher. You put a little wheel which is connected to a generator, and thereby creating electricity.
Yep. No, there are many, many, George. This is the reason we don't have perpetual engines or just more efficient engines is because they want to make every penny they can off of this fossil fuel. DeWolf wanted to read Zach's comment. That's funny.
Oh, Zach Hawkins says, so if you own a Tesla car and it gets stolen, does that make it an Edison?
That's a good one, dude. We also have a comment from Eric Hawkins says time slip, time travel, Mandela effect. Yeah, man, we have to do the Mandela effect. That's going to be a big one too. All right, let's vote. We do Tesla and all the things that'll come off of that, or we do Mandela next week. What's your choice, Lindero?
Oh man, that's a tough one. You know what? I want to save Tesla. Let's do the Mandela effect. Let's at least touch on it. Let's just because it's pretty
enormous.
Deep.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about you, DeWolf? What do you vote?
Well, last weekend we were talking about time in Mandela, even maybe a time before that.
Yeah.
So, we've covered it. We've only talked about doing Tesla now, I think, once. So pushing it back further would be okay.
I think so. And Tesla's a good conversation. We'll definitely have that at one of these shows. But George, what do you think?
I say Tesla.
You say Tesla. Well, I'm definitely going to go Mandela. I think the Tesla one, I'm going to need to do a little bit of preparation to make sure that I'm properly ready to have that conversation. And also, Matthew, I know you're going to talk about the Philosopher's Stone, and I did go and do that study you asked me to, and I do believe that that will come up in the Tesla conversation because it will expand beyond that. So I will bring that up in that Tesla talk. But next week we're doing the Mandela effect. So guys, get yourself ready. And once again, like I say every week, if any of you guys are really up on the Mandela thing and you want to sit in here with us and give your opinion, please do, man. My links are just down below. We'd love to have you. Love to have you. Right? And it's don't be intimidated by it. It's really easy. It's fun. We're just having a conversation. Just keep in mind this is very much radio, and we're just a bunch of dudes having a conversation. Occasionally we get a chick in here too, but mainly it's dudes. But that's all right.
Mainly it's a sausage fest. Yeah.
Mainly.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let me see here. Thundero, give us our words of wisdom so I can say namaste.
I already gave you some beautiful words of wisdom, and they're just ignored.
Mistimed, dude.
Let's see. What's some words of wisdom? One thing you have to remember is most of this that we're talking about, we're just doing it for fun.
Oh, yeah.
Some of it we take seriously. Some of it's just tongue-in-cheek, just jokes. But at the end of the day, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, even with this stuff, try not to take life so seriously because no one gets out of it alive.
That's right. Yeah. Namaste. Tommy Robinson.
Flat Earth is round.
Later, guys.